Chapter 230. As he stepped into the purple light door of the underground tomb, his vision blurred, as if it had happened in an instant. When Xiaochen regained his vision, he found himself standing on the peak of the mountain behind the Xiao clan, and behind him was the purple light door from before. It was indeed the exit. The purple light door at the peak of the mountain was connected to the purple light door in the underground tomb. Through these two purple light doors, one could freely enter and exit the underground tomb. Seeing Xiaochen come out safely, Xiaoqing and Bairuyue, who were originally worried, heaved a sigh of relief. It's good that he's fine, it's good that he's fine. Xiaochen was safe and sound, and the mysterious restriction that shrouded the mountain behind the Xiao clan also disappeared. Everyone could now climb up the mountain and observe the purple light door from a close distance. Xiaochen heard from Xiaoqing that the mysterious restriction was something that even the Pill Cloud ruler couldn't break. He became more and more suspicious. If even an almighty ruler couldn't break the restriction, then how powerful was the person who set it up? An existence that surpassed an almighty ruler? Furthermore, could the disappearance of the restriction that shrouded the mountain behind have something to do with him? The underground tomb was indeed too mysterious, and Xiaochen didn't know how to explain it. Seeing Xiaochen come back safely, the Pill Cloud ruler frowned slightly, as if he was thinking about something. He didn't notice the Pill Cloud ruler's expression. Seeing Xiaochen come back safely, everyone in the Xiao clan heaved a sigh of relief. Then, everyone began to study the purple light door. From Xiaochen, they already knew that the purple light door was connected to an underground tomb. However, there wasn't anything special in the tomb. Of course, Xiaochen didn't tell everyone about the changes in his body. It wasn't because he wanted to hide it, but because he didn't know how to say it. He couldn't tell everyone that he now had the power of bloodline, right? If he said this, everyone would think that he was crazy. In this world, how could a human have the power of bloodline? That was a characteristic of demonic beasts. He didn't tell anyone about this. After some research, someone suggested that they head to the underground tomb to take a look. Soon, everyone chose a branch family disciple with earth mirror cultivation to go and investigate. He stepped into the glowing door, and soon, the branch family disciple disappeared into the glowing door. Everyone waited outside. After waiting for roughly 2 hours, the branch family disciple finally returned. To everyone's surprise, after just 2 hours, the branch family disciple's cultivation base had risen from the Earth Bright Mirror stage to the Sky Human stage. Upon realizing this, everyone from the Xiao clan was stunned. How was it possible to break through a major realm in just 2 hours? Moreover, that was not all. Everyone heard about what happened after he entered the underground tomb from this branch disciple. According to him, as soon as he entered the underground tomb, he felt a sense of comfort. Then, unconsciously, he fell into a state of cultivation. During his cultivation, this person entered an extremely strange state. It was as if he had a dream, but he could no longer remember the content. When he woke up again, his cultivation had already broken through to the celestial realm. What a joke! He broke through to the celestial realm just because he had a dream? This person's words were too unimaginable. However, what he was about to say next made everyone's jaws drop. After waking up from the underground tomb, he felt some changes in his body. It was as if something in his body had awakened. It was also the attribute of this thing that had greatly improved his talent. Not only his cultivation base, but even his talent had improved. One must know that a human's talent was the same as a demonic beast's bloodline power. They were all destined at birth and couldn't be improved. But now, this person actually said that his talent had improved. Hearing this person's words, Xiaochen strode in front of him. Without saying a word, he stretched out his hand and tapped on this person's forehead. Soul power spread out and began to check this person's body. After checking, Xiaochen frowned slightly. This person's meridians and blood were not like his. They were still in a normal state. However, Xiaochen could feel an extremely familiar aura in this person's body. This aura was actually very similar to the bloodline power in his body. Moreover, Xiaochen's intuition told him that even if this person was now at the celestial realm, as long as he activated the bloodline power in his body, he could instantly suppress this person. It had nothing to do with cultivation base. It was completely bloodline suppression. What a joke! There was actually bloodline suppression between humans? After carefully checking several times, Xiaochen still couldn't find the answer in the end. Just as Xiaochen was checking the body of this collateral descendant, the people of the Xiao clan on the other side couldn't help but rush towards the purple door. What a joke! To be able to raise one's cultivation base within 2 hours and also improve one's talent. Who would be willing to let go of such a rare opportunity? Everyone wanted to enter the purple door of light. At the same time, as everyone studied the purple door of light in depth, the people of the Xiao clan discovered that apart from the people of the Xiao clan, no one else could enter the underground tomb. Even the Pill Cloud Sovereign personally tried, but he still didn't succeed. After entering from one side of the door of light, the Pill Cloud Sovereign appeared from the other side of the door. He wasn't teleported into the underground tomb. Apart from the Pill Cloud Sovereign, Bai Ryue also couldn't enter. This meant that only the people of the Xiao clan could enter the underground tomb. Realizing this, all the people of the Xiao clan naturally thought that this was a gift from their ancestors. It was a great opportunity that the ancestors of the Xiao clan had left for their descendants. With such an opportunity in front of them, the people of the Xiao clan couldn't wait to enter the underground tomb. However, at most, only 10 people could enter the underground tomb at a time. Any more than that and they couldn't enter. Just like that, under the command of Xiao Qing and the 5 great elders, the people of the Xiao clan began to enter the underground tomb in batches. The first to enter would definitely be Xiao Qing and the 5 great elders, followed by the direct descendants of the Xiao clan. Finally, it would be the disciples of the Xiao clan's branch family. Seeing the people of the Xiao clan enter the underground tomb, Xiaochen also came to the side of the Pill Cloud Sovereign and asked curiously, "Master, do you know what's going on?" The appearance of the underground tomb was too strange. Furthermore, it could raise one's cultivation base by one's cultivation base within 2 hours. It could even improve one's talent. This was indeed unimaginable. Faced with Xiao Chen's question, the Pill Cloud Sovereign seemed to be deep in thought. After pondering for a moment, he said, "It's hard to say. I can't be sure. However, this is indeed a heaven-sent opportunity for the Xiao clan. The appearance of the underground tomb is enough to raise the overall strength of the Xiao clan by several levels, making them a true powerful clan. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." Chapter 231. The appearance of the Purple Door of Light and the underground tomb was indeed a great opportunity for the Xiao clan. Just as the Pill Cloud ruler finished speaking, Xiao Qing, who was in the first batch to enter, and the 5 elders also walked out of the Purple Door of Light. Seeing the 6 of them, the Xiao clan members immediately let out cries of surprise. The 6 of them had all stepped into the Tao-seeking realm. In just 2 hours, Xiao Qing and the other 5's cultivation had risen from the heaven realm to the Tao-seeking realm. Furthermore, from the looks of astonishment on their faces, it was obvious that their talents had also improved tremendously. Being able to improve their cultivation and talents was enough to drive anyone crazy. Of course, such benefits were only available to the Xiao clan members. Without the Xiao clan's bloodline, even the mighty sovereigns couldn't enter the underground tomb. After Xiao Qing and the other 5 personally tested the underground tomb and confirmed that there was no danger at all, the Xiao clan members entered the underground tomb in batches under the command of the 5 elders and Xiao Qing. Just as the Pill Cloud ruler had said, the appearance of the underground tomb and the Purple Door of Light was enough to raise the Xiao clan's status by several levels, making them a true powerhouse. Everyone from the Xiao clan waited excitedly outside the Door of Light. At the same time, Xiaochen left with the Pill Cloud ruler. There was nothing else for him to do now. Besides, Xiaochen had a feeling that the Pill Cloud Dao Master seemed to know something about the underground tomb, so he wanted to ask the Pill Cloud ruler in private. Along the way to the Pill Cloud ruler's residence, only the master and disciple were left. Xiaochen didn't hide anything and asked directly, "Master, do you know something? What exactly is going on with the underground tomb?" the Pill Cloud ruler didn't answer Xiao Chen's question. Instead, he tapped on Xiao Chen's forehead with a finger, and his soul power surged into Xiao Chen's body. Under the inner vision, Xiao Chen's meridians and bloodline power were completely exposed to the Pill Cloud ruler's eyes. Sensing the bloodline power in Xiao Chen's body, even the Pill Cloud ruler couldn't help but turn pale with fright. It took him a while to regain his composure. Bloodline power. The Pill Cloud ruler thought to himself, but he didn't say anything. He only told Xiao Chen, "This isn't a bad thing for the Xiao clan, but there are some things that I can't be sure of. Besides, you don't need to know too much now. You just need to remember that this is a great opportunity for the Xiao clan, and even more so for you." He didn't give Xiao Chen the answer he wanted. As soon as he finished speaking, the Pill Cloud ruler turned and walked back into his room. Clearly, the Pill Cloud sovereign must have noticed something, but he refused to tell Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen could do nothing about it. Xiao Chen spent the next few days studying the power of his bloodline. While Xiao Chen was studying the power of his bloodline, the members of the Xiao clan had also come out of the underground tomb in just a few days. After going through the baptism of the underground tomb, the overall strength of the Xiao clan had completely improved by leaps and bounds. Now, the Xiao clan had 6 Dao Querying Realm cultivators, a terrifying 50 Celestial Realm cultivators, and more than 100 Earth Realm cultivators. As for the Mystic Aeon Realm and Yellow Realm cultivators, there were too many to count. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that the current Xiao clan could easily remove the royal family of Lingfeng country without Xiao Chen. The increase in strength made the Xiao clan overjoyed. This was because this time, it wasn't just an increase in cultivation base. More importantly, it was an increase in talent. After the increase in talent, the Xiao clan would be able to go further on the path of martial arts. In the future, the Xiao clan would be incomparably glorious. To put it bluntly, any one of the younger generation in the Xiao clan was a genius. Everyone in the Xiao clan was a genius. How terrifying was that? While the members of the Xiao clan were overjoyed, Xiao Chen also discovered another effect of his bloodline power, which was that it had the ability to suppress the members of the Xiao clan. When facing the members of the Xiao clan, a single thought from Xiao Chen would have suffocated the other party. Xiao Chen had already tried this before. Even the 5 great elders, who had Dao Querying Realm cultivation, could not move a finger in front of Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen only needed a thought to make the 5 great elders unable to move a finger. It was an absolutely terrifying suppression that came from the depths of the bloodline. It was impossible to resist or break. The reason why he could suppress anyone in the Xiao clan was because of Xiao Chen's bloodline power. He had already checked many members of the Xiao clan. Among them, none of them had the same bloodline power as Xiao Chen. It was certain that among all the members of the Xiao clan, only Xiao Chen possessed the power of the bloodline. The other lords of the Xiao clan did not possess it. Perhaps it was because of the power of the bloodline that Xiao Chen was able to suppress any member of the Xiao clan so easily. With such means, Xiao Chen's control over the Xiao clan had reached an absolute peak. If any member of the Xiao clan dared to have any thoughts of betrayal, Xiao Chen only needed a thought to make the other party explode and die instantly, no matter how far away they were. In this way, no matter how high the Xiao clan reached in the future, Xiao Chen would be the king of the Xiao clan. He could control the life and death of everyone in the Xiao clan with just a thought. After confirming this, Xiao Chen was completely relieved. He had not gone out for a few days. On this day, Xiao Chen was strolling in the Xiao clan's mansion. Looking at the smiles on the faces of the members of the Xiao clan, Xiao Chen was also very happy. It was naturally Xiao Chen's wish for his clan to be strong. Moreover, Xiao Chen had absolute control over the Xiao clan. He did not have to worry about anyone in the Xiao clan daring to rebel. Just as Xiao Chen was casually strolling, there were a few members of the younger generation of the Xiao clan not far away. They were all of the same generation as Xiao Chen. After going through the underground tomb, these few people's cultivation had increased from the mysterious Yuan realm to the Earth Mirror realm. Moreover, their talents had also improved tremendously. Perhaps it was because of this great improvement that these few young men had less respect for Xiao Chen. Seeing Xiaochen walking over, one of the young men mocked him coldly. Do you know that everyone in the Xiao clan has benefited greatly from the appearance of the underground tomb this time? Only Xiaochen did not change at all. His cultivation did not increase at all. I heard that many people said that the ancestor did not like Xiaochen. That was why he did not give him any opportunities. In the past, our Xiao clan had to rely on Xiaochen. But now, because of the gift from the ancestor, our Xiao clan's strength has increased tremendously. We no longer need to rely on Xiaochen to dominate the Lingfeng country. That's not all. With our current talents, I'm afraid that it won't be difficult for us to surpass Xiaochen in the future. That's right, that's right. Please add, recommend, and vote. Chapter 232. Due to the instantaneous increase in strength and the qualitative change in talent, a small portion of the Xiao clan had a change in mentality. Previously, the entire Xiao clan had to rely on Xiaochen, but now, with the overall strength of the Xiao clan, even without Xiaochen, it was enough to dominate Lingfeng country. Moreover, after this heaven-sent opportunity, the Xiao clan would only become stronger and stronger. Because of this, some people began to feel that Xiaochen was no longer that important. In addition to this heaven-sent opportunity, the cultivation of almost everyone in the Xiao clan had increased by leaps and bounds, except for Xiaochen. Some people with ulterior motives also began to spread rumors, saying that the ancestors did not like Xiaochen, so they did not give Xiaochen any opportunities. Hearing the words of these Xiao clan disciples, Xiaochen smiled and shook his head, not bothering about it. Perhaps some people already thought that he was no longer that important to the Xiao clan. Little did they know, compared to before, Xiaochen's control over the Xiao clan had increased tremendously. With the bloodline suppression, he could decide the life and death of anyone in the Xiao clan with just a thought. No matter how high the cultivation was, as long as Xiaochen wanted, he would definitely die. Not bothering about these Xiao clan disciples, Xiaochen walked away. The changes in the ancestral land allowed the Xiao clan to completely taste the sweetness. At this moment, the ancestral land of the Xiao clan had become the most heavily guarded place in the Xiao clan. It was personally guarded by the 5 great elders, and anyone who needed to enter or leave the ancestral land had to obtain the approval of the 5 great elders. Xiaochen did not have any special purpose on his way to the ancestral land. He just wanted to take another look at the purple light door, and see if there were any new discoveries. Just as Xiaochen arrived at the entrance of the ancestral land, there were many Xiao clan members gathered outside the ancestral land. Although these people had already entered the underground tomb, this did not stop them from longing for the ancestral land. Therefore, many Xiao clan members would gather outside the ancestral land as long as they had nothing to do, chatting and thanking the ancestors for their gifts. Xiaochen strolled over. Seeing this, the expressions of these Xiao clansmen changed slightly, but they quickly returned to normal. They also greeted Xiaochen, but from their expressions and words, Xiaochen could clearly feel the change. Compared to before, they were clearly not as respectful. Perhaps in their opinion, the current Xiao clan no longer needed to completely rely on Xiaochen. Xiaochen did not mind. He directly strode towards the ancestral grounds, but at this moment, a middle-aged woman stopped him. Xiaochen, the 5 elders have ordered that anyone who wishes to enter the ancestral grounds must first report to them. They can only enter after obtaining permission. Did he have to report his entry into the ancestral land? Hearing this person's words, Xiaochen turned his head and swept his gaze across the crowd. Facing Xiaochen's gaze, no one avoided it. Instead, they calmly looked back at Xiaochen. Their attitude had indeed changed a lot. Regarding this, Xiaochen was a little displeased. A cold glint flashed in his eyes. Xiaochen said indifferently, "With the appearance of the underground tomb, all of you have obtained great benefits from it. Only I seem to have obtained nothing. So, do you think that the ancestors do not like me and did not give me any opportunities?" Hearing Xiaochen's words, no one made a sound. It was not difficult to tell from their expressions that they indeed thought so. Xiaochen smiled slightly, then directly activated the bloodline power in his body. In an instant, the Shao clansmen in front of Xiaochen could not help but kneel down and kowtow to Xiaochen. It was a completely uncontrollable kowtow. Not only that, everyone only felt a chill emerge from the depths of their hearts and shroud them. It was as if a sharp sword was hanging on their necks. With just a thought from Xiaochen, all of their heads would fall to the ground in an instant. They wanted to resist, but they could not muster the slightest will to resist. They knelt on the ground and raised their heads to look at Xiaochen, who had a calm expression on his face. At this moment, Xiaochen seemed to be countless times taller in their eyes. He held the power to kill all of them in his hands. How? How is this possible? Why? An old man of the Shao clan, who was at the celestial realm, said in disbelief. Xiaochen was only at the earth realm. No matter how powerful his combat prowess was, it was impossible for him to suppress so many of them without doing anything. They were extremely shocked. Seeing this, Xiaochen said indifferently, "Some things are meaningless if I say it out loud. The ancestors' gift you obtained in the underground tomb was to increase your cultivation and talent, while I obtained absolute control of the Shao clan. Anyone with the Shao clan's bloodline only needs a thought. Even if they are thousands of miles away, I can easily kill them. So, put away those little thoughts in your hearts." Xiaochen was not in the mood to bicker with these people. In his opinion, they were just arrogant because of a temporary increase in their strength. So, it was enough to give them a warning. Moreover, after knowing that he had the ability to easily kill them, he believed that there would not be any more ignorant people in the Shao clan. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiaochen turned around and walked into the ancestral land, leaving the group of Shao clan members in a mess. How is this possible? How can Xiaochen possess such power? What exactly is that suppression from the depths of his bloodline? Does Xiaochen really control the life and death of all the Shao clan members? If that was the case, then wouldn't Xiaochen's control over the Shao clan be even stronger than before? This matter was completely out of everyone's expectations, and it quickly spread throughout the Shao clan. Some of the Shao clan members who once had some thoughts were terrified. As the first person to enter the underground tomb, Xiaochen did not gain nothing. Instead, he gained the power to control the life and death of the entire Shao clan. Everyone knew that from now on, no one in the entire Shao clan would dare to rebel. If it was said that the Shao clan could not do without Xiaochen in the past, then it was even more so now. This was because as long as Xiaochen wanted to, everyone in the Shao clan could be wiped out in an instant. Moreover, the suppression from the depths of their bloodline made everyone in the Shao clan unconsciously recognize Xiaochen as their master. They could not disobey Xiaochen's orders. In just one day, the Shao clan members' attitude towards Xiaochen had once again become extremely respectful. It was even more respectful than before. This was a respect that came from the depths of their hearts. In this respect, there was even a trace of fear. This was because before Xiaochen, cultivation was useless. No matter what cultivation one had, Xiaochen could mercilessly suppress them with just a thought. Xiaochen did not care about the changes in the Shao clan members. After going to the ancestral land again yesterday, Xiaochen still did not discover anything new. Helpless, he went to the residence of the Pill Cloud Sovereign. Now that everything was basically settled, Xiaochen also planned to discuss with Dao Master Pill Cloud about bringing the Shao clan members back to Nine Firmaments Palace. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 233. As Xiaochen was making his way to the Pill Cloud Hegemon's courtyard, the heavenly Pill Hegemon had arrived at the Shao family's residence. He was talking to the Pill Cloud Hegemon in the garden. "Are you certain?" The heavenly Pill Hegemon's face turned solemn as he looked at the Pill Cloud Hegemon in shock. Hearing the heavenly Pill Hegemon's words, the Pill Cloud Hegemon seemed to have become a completely different person. There was no trace of drunkenness in him at all. Instead, his eyes shone brightly as he said, "I'm not certain. At any rate, this is just a legend. Even the ancient books only have a partial record of it. Bloodline power, huh? How unexpected," the heavenly Pill Hegemon said with a sigh. As the two of them were talking, Xiaochen appeared outside the courtyard. He saw the heavenly pill hegemon from afar. Even so, he still walked into the courtyard. Xiaochen told the pill cloud hegemon his thoughts. He was prepared to bring everyone from the Xiao family to Nine Firmaments Palace. This had always been Xiaochen's plan. However, after hearing Xiaochen's thoughts, the pill cloud hegemon gave a different suggestion. Truth be told, I don't think there is a need for the Xiao family to go to Nine Firmaments Palace. Going there would be detrimental to their cultivation. It would be better for them to stay here. The pill cloud hegemon did not agree with bringing everyone from the Xiao family to Nine Firmaments Palace. In the past, he would not have said that. However, the changes in the Xiao family had caused him to dispel the idea. In the pill cloud hegemon's opinion, the underground tomb was not as simple as it appeared. Not only did it increase the cultivation base and talent of the Xiao family, but he could also vaguely sense that since the underground tomb appeared, the spiritual energy in the Xiao family had become much thicker. Additionally, the spiritual energy was very unique and very compatible with the Xiao family. In other words, it was much easier for the Xiao family to refine the spiritual energy compared to other places. In addition, the demonic cultivators of the Eastern Sun region had been completely suppressed. Although there were definitely some hidden people, these demonic cultivators were no longer a threat to the Xiao clan. Since there was no danger and the Xiao family would benefit greatly from staying here, there was no need to bring the Xiao family to Nine Firmaments Palace. Hearing Dao Master Pill Cloud's words, Xiaochen fell silent for a moment. Dao Master's words made sense. However, Xiao was worried that if the Xiao family continued to stay here, the demonic cultivators would return in the future, they would be in danger. He would not be able to save them in time. The heavens. Seeing that, Dao Master Danyan continued, don't underestimate your own family. Xiaochen, there are some things that I cannot be certain of right now. However, I can tell you with certainty that the Xiao family is not to be underestimated. Given enough time, the Xiao family will definitely become a powerful helper for you in the future. Naturally, that is on the premise that you can fully control the Xiao family. Thus, let the Xiao family stay. Clearly, the Pill Cloud Dominator knew something about the changes in the Xiao family. However, after several inquiries, he still refused to reveal anything. Now that the Pill Cloud Dominator had such a high opinion of the Xiao family, Xiaochen made up his mind. Since staying here would be beneficial to the cultivation of the Xiao family, he might as well stay. In the end, he accepted the Pill Cloud hegemon's suggestion and allowed the Xiao family to stay in Lingshan County City. There was a mysterious underground tomb here that would be of great help to the Xiao family's cultivation. As for Xiaochen, the underground tomb was no longer of much help to him. Frankly speaking, with the mysterious power of his bloodline, Xiaochen was a living underground tomb. Thus, staying in the Xiao family would not be of much use to Xiaochen. In that case, let's hurry up and leave. Judging by the time, the 5 Elemental Dao Palace is about to open, said the Pill Cloud hegemon. The 5 Elemental Dao Palace was about to open. The 10 prided kings and all the other geniuses would enter. Thus, it was time for them to return to the Central Divine Region. Hearing the Pill Cloud hegemon's words, Xiaochen nodded his head. Then, he went to Xiaoqing and Bairuyua's residence to bid farewell to his parents. After Xiaochen left, the Pill Cloud hegemon asked seriously, "Are you sure you won't tell anyone about this?" The Pill Cloud hegemon had no intentions of telling the other sovereigns about the Xiao family. Regarding this, the Pill Cloud hegemon seemed somewhat worried. Facing the Pill Cloud hegemon's question, the Pill Cloud hegemon replied nonchalantly. "No need. We can't be sure yet. Besides, even if we do, what can we do? Even you and I cannot be sure if the legend is true." Determined to keep the Xiao family's matter a secret, the Pill Cloud hegemon nodded his head slightly and said nothing more. After a night of silence, the next morning, Xiaochen and the Pill Cloud hegemon prepared to leave. The members of the Xiao family took the initiative to send them off. Looking at the Xiao family, whose temperament had changed greatly, Xiaochen felt somewhat emotional. This trip had been filled with twists and turns. However, no matter what, the result was still good. Under the escort of the many members of the Xiao family, Xiaochen and the Pill Cloud Hegemon left Ridge Mountain County City. As expected, they did not bring the Xiao family back to Nine Firmaments Palace. Instead, they accidentally opened up the underground tomb, causing a great change to the Xiao family. According to the Pill Cloud Hegemon, the next time Xiaochen returned to the Xiao family, he would likely be shocked. The underground tomb was not as simple as it appeared to be. Just like when they first arrived, under the guidance of Dao Sovereign Pill Cloud, the two of them quickly made their way to the central divine region. Along the way, they did not encounter any dangers. A few days later, the two of them safely returned to Nine Firmaments Palace. After parting for nearly half a month, Xiaochen first returned to the Dustless residence. He found that Qin Shuru had broken through to the Earthbright realm. This made Xiaochen very happy. After breaking through, Qin Shuru seemed to have become even more beautiful. At the same time, his temperament had become even colder. Only when he was facing Xiaochen would he reveal a rare smile. Otherwise, he would have an unapproachable look on his face. As the saying goes, absence makes the heart grow fonder. That night, Xiaochen and Qin Shuru did not need to say much. The night passed in silence. The next day, Xiaochen went to the Pill Cloud Hegemon's residence and began learning alchemy from him. This time, according to the Pill Cloud Hegemon's request, Xiaochen could not leave until he became a mystic-grade alchemist. During the boring process of learning alchemy, just as the Pill Cloud Hegemon had expected, Xiaochen's foundation became more stable. His spiritual energy also became more solid. At the same time, the Pill Cloud Hegemon was struck by the fact that Xiaochen had only used half a month to successfully concoct a mystic-grade medicinal pill. Half a month to become a mystic-grade alchemist. This speed was another blow to the Pill Cloud Hegemon. Scram! After cursing, the Pill Cloud Hegemon chased Xiaochen out. This brat was too much of a blow to him. Begging for a monthly vote, begging for a recommendation. Chapter 234. Being chased away by the Pill Cloud Dominator, Xiaochen felt depressed. Looking at Xiaochen's back, the Pill Cloud Dominator murmured to himself, "That kid's talent seems to have improved quite a bit. Could it be because of the power of the bloodline as well?" As Xiaochen's master, the Pill Cloud Dominator could clearly feel that Xiaochen's talent had improved significantly after this round of concocting medicines. Xiaochen was already one of the 10 great prides. Now that his talent had improved once more, it was hard to imagine just how great his future achievements would be. Unaware of the Pill Cloud ruler's thoughts, Xiaochen's depression quickly dissipated after he was chased away. He had finally fulfilled the Pill Cloud ruler's request. With that, he could use the remaining time to prepare for the 5 Elemental Dao Palace. After returning to the Dustless residence, Xiaochen impatiently went to the 100 Spirits Lake. He could enter and leave the sacred cultivation ground of Nine Firmaments Palace whenever he wanted. If he wanted to make a breakthrough, the 100 Spirits Lake would be his first choice. This was not his first time there. Xiaochen familiarly went to the 100 Spirits Lake and found a mat to sit down cross-legged. Then, he began to cultivate. Originally, Xiaochen could have broken through to minor success in the Earth Clarity Mirror realm. However, due to the Pill Cloud ruler's request, Xiaochen obediently studied alchemy for half a month. However, that half a month of studying alchemy was not for nothing. It allowed Xiaochen to reach the pinnacle of minor success in the Earth Clarity Mirror realm. Because of that half a month of studying alchemy, Xiaochen's breakthrough came naturally. It did not take much effort for him to break through to minor success in the Earth Clarity Mirror realm. Moreover, it was extremely stable. Xiaochen easily broke through to the small success of the Earth Clear Mirror realm. He was not in a hurry to leave the 100 Spirits pool. Instead, he stayed in the pool for another 2 days. He did not leave until he had completely stabilized his cultivation. After leaving the 100 Spirits pool, he calculated the time. There was less than half a month left before the 5 Elemental Dao Palace opened. In the remaining time, Xiaochen planned to cultivate another Earth rank martial skill. After all, the Tai Sword Finger was the only Earth rank martial skill he had. Moreover, although the Tai sword finger was powerful, it consumed a terrifying amount of spiritual energy. It could only be used as a killing move. As such, he naturally needed another Earth rank martial skill to complement it. He headed straight for the Sky Sword Peak's martial arts hall. While Xiaochen was making the final preparations for the 5 elemental Dao Palace, the other 9 prodigies were doing the same. As one of the heavenly Qin continent's 5 great divine sites, the opening of the 5 elemental Dao Palace would undoubtedly affect the hearts of countless people. Not to mention, those who could enter this time were all geniuses. The war in the 4 regions gradually eased up and the demonic cultivators all went into hiding. The heavenly Qin continent once again seized the initiative. As such, everyone's eyes naturally fell upon the competition for the 5 elemental Dao Palace. He went straight to the Sky Sword Peak's martial arts hall. With the help of 9 Firmaments Palace, the Sky Sword Peak's martial arts hall had a large number of martial skills. Additionally, the ruler of the 9 firmaments had specially bestowed several heaven rank and earth rank martial skills to the Sky Sword Peak. As such, the martial arts hall became the most lively place in the Sky Sword Peak. Every day, many disciples of the Sky Sword Peak would come to the martial arts hall to choose a suitable martial skill. However, if they wanted to cultivate the martial arts hall's martial arts hall, they would need to pay a certain amount of sect contribution points. Xiaochen, on the other hand, did not need to do so. Any martial skill, even a heaven rank martial skill, could be cultivated by Xiaochen at any time. He only needed to register with the martial arts hall's elder. Senior brother. Senior brother Xiaochen. After being greeted by everyone, Xiaochen went straight to the earth rank martial skills area. In the huge martial arts hall, the number of basic martial skills was the highest. There were several hundred of them. The profound martial skills were much fewer, only around 100. As for earth rank martial skills, they were even rarer, less than 20. As for the top heaven rank martial skills, there were only 3 of them in the entire Sky Sword Peak's martial skills area. Those 3 were bestowed by the ruler of the 9 Firmaments Palace. After all, as one of the 9 peaks of 9 Firmaments Palace, if they did not even have a single heaven rank martial skill, they would become a laughingstock. Xiaochen did not look at the 3 heaven rank martial skills. He knew very well that with his current cultivation level, he could not practice heaven rank martial skills. He did not have enough spiritual energy in his body. Therefore, he did not bite off more than he could chew. Instead, he chose the earth rank martial skills. The entire earth-level martial skills area was not big, and there were not many people. One by one, they chose earth-level martial skills that were suitable for themselves. As the martial skills collected by the Sky Sword Peak, naturally, all of them were sword techniques. There were more than 20 sword techniques, which made Xiaochen feel a little dazzled. It really felt like there were too many things to see. Fiery Dragon Kill. 100 Black Shadow Swords. Clear Wind Blade. Along the way, even Xiaochen had to admit that every sword technique that could become an earth-grade martial arts technique could be said to be incomparably exquisite, and its power was definitely not to be underestimated. However, after looking at more than 10 sword techniques in a row, Xiaochen still had not found one that he liked. Either it was not suitable for him, he did not like it, or he did not like it. He always felt that something was missing. Continuing to choose, Xiaochen looked at the most eye-catching spot in the earth rank martial skills area. On a huge bookshelf, there was only one earth rank martial skill. With a glance, one could tell that this earth rank martial skill was extraordinary. In fact, Xiaochen had noticed this martial art technique from the very beginning. However, after seeing the notes on the side, Xiaochen was a little hesitant. Now, it seemed that this earth-level martial art technique was the most suitable for him. It was called the 3 layers of overlapping waves. It was an earth rank upper rank martial skill. It was extremely powerful. When it was cultivated to the perfection stage, one sword strike would be like 10,000 waves sweeping towards the enemy, leaving them with nowhere to hide. However, although the 3 layers of overlapping waves had unparalleled power, it was also extremely difficult to cultivate. The difficulty of cultivating it was comparable to heaven-rank martial skills. An earth-rank martial skill had the difficulty of cultivating a heaven-rank martial skill. Just this point alone was enough to make many people shrink back. The difficulty was too high, but the power was not as strong as a heaven-rank martial skill. In the eyes of ordinary people, it was obviously not worth it. The note at the side was very clear. It warned disciples who wanted to cultivate the 3 layers of overlapping waves to think thrice before doing so. They must not do anything useless. Very few people dared to cultivate the 3 layers of overlapping waves. However, Xiaochen did not care. He was confident that he could cultivate the 3 layers of overlapping waves before the 5 elements Tao Palace opened. Although the difficulty of cultivating the 3 layers of overlapping waves was comparable to a heaven-rank martial skill, it was nothing to Xiaochen with his talent. Without much hesitation, Xiaochen directly chose the 3 layers of overlapping waves. He immediately registered with the Martial Skills Hall Elder and left with the manual. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendation. Chapter 235. After choosing the triple overlapping waves, which could be said to be the most difficult upper-grade earth-grade martial technique to cultivate, Xiaochen began his closed-door training. However, this time, it was not to increase his cultivation base, but to cultivate martial techniques. He had to make good use of the time to cultivate the triple overlapping waves. At the same time, the Tai sword finger was only at the initial realm. He had to reach the proficient realm before the 5 elemental Tao Palace opened. Cultivating 2 upper-level earth-grade martial arts techniques at the same time in less than half a month was naturally very difficult. Even Xiaochen was not confident that he could do it in such a short period of time. The difficulty of cultivating an earth-grade martial technique was no laughing matter. However, 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. During these 10 days, even Xiaochen himself didn't expect that not only would he be able to cultivate the 3 layers of overlapping waves to the proficient level, he would even be able to step into the proficient level of the Tai martial technique. If others were to learn that he had reached the proficient realm in 2 high-grade earth-tier martial skills in 10 days, their jaws would definitely drop from shock. It was no exaggeration to say that the mysterious bloodline within Xiaochen's body played an important role in this. It was also because of the appearance of the mysterious bloodline that Xiaochen's talent had increased greatly. Otherwise, even though Xiaochen's original talent was extraordinary, it was absolutely impossible for him to achieve this. Xiaochen was overjoyed that he had reached the proficient realm in both high-grade earth-tier martial skills. With this, his confidence in the competition for the 5 elemental Tao Palace would be even greater. Although the other 9 prodigies would definitely not remain stagnant, Xiaochen was clearly ahead of them in terms of speed of improvement. With only a few days left, Xiaochen did not plan to continue cultivating. At this time, Xiaochen received a message from a prodigy. This prodigy was one of Xiaochen's followers. He had sent a message to Xiaochen that the people who had chosen to become Xiaochen's followers had agreed to meet at the 100 Immortals House in 5 Elemental City in 3 days. At that time, Xiaochen could find them there. The 100 Immortals House in 5 Elemental City was a branch of the 100 Immortals House. As the largest brothel in the Heavenly Qin continent, the 100 Immortals House had branches in almost every major city in the Central Divine region. After receiving the message, Xiaochen had heard a little about 5 Elemental City. In the Central Divine region, 5 Elemental City was extremely famous because it was the entrance to the 5 Elemental Tao Palace. Every time the 5 Elemental Tao Palace opened, everyone would have to enter from 5 Elemental City. Of course, when leaving, they would have to return to 5 Elemental City. Because of the 5 Elemental Tao Palace, 5 Elemental City was extremely lively. This was especially true during the period when the 5 Elemental Tao Palace opened. Regardless of whether they were qualified to enter the 5 Elemental Tao Palace, many people would come to see with their own eyes what one of the 5 great divine vestiges of the Heavenly Qin continent looked like. 3 days later, they would meet at the 100 Immortals House in 5 Elemental City. With a faint smile, Xiaochen decided to leave tomorrow. It would take him 3 days to go from 9 Firmaments Palace to the 100 Immortals House. After returning to the dustless residence, he told Qin Shuru about his departure. Qin Shuru naturally didn't say anything about it. She knew how important the five-elemental Dao Palace was to Xiaochen. After chatting for a while, Xiaochen said with some concern, "Shuru, I feel that the cold energy on your body is getting stronger and stronger. Especially after breaking through to the Earth realm, even I would feel cold sometimes. How about I have Master take a look at you?" After breaking through to the Earth realm, Qin Shuru's cold energy had increased by several times. Even Xiaochen could feel traces of coldness. Worried, she wanted the Pill Cloud ruler to take a look. Hearing Xiaochen's words, Qin Shuru, who was wearing a white muslin dress, smiled and said, "There is no need. I know my body well." In the face of Qin Shuru's insistence, Xiaochen did not say anything else. However, unbeknownst to Xiaochen, after breaking through to the Earth realm, Qin Shuru's body had indeed undergone some changes. It was as though something had awakened. This change was very similar to the awakening of the bloodline power within Xiaochen's body. After a silent night, early the next morning, after bidding farewell to Qin Shuru, Xiaochen rode the golden-winged great rock and left Nine Firmaments Palace, heading towards Five Elemental City. Watching Xiaochen disappear into the horizon, a complicated look flashed across Qin Shuru's eyes. He muttered softly, "Just what is awakening? And the dreams I've been having these past few days? And what is this snowfield continent?" There were indeed many things that Qin Shuru was hiding from Xiaochen. He was certain that some changes had occurred within his body. Something was about to awaken. Because of this change, even Qin Shuru's personality had changed. His former gentleness was gradually fading away, replaced by an endless coldness. His eyes were filled with confusion. Xiaochen was unaware of all this. At that moment, he was already on his way to Five Elemental City, stepping onto the stage where he would compete with the other 9 geniuses for the first time. As for the ruler of the 9 firmaments and the others, they would only appear when the Five Elemental Dao Palace opened. After flying for 3 days, Xiaochen finally arrived at Five Elemental City. From afar, Five Elemental City was not as big as Perpetual Joy City. After all, Perpetual Joy City was one of the largest cities in the Heavenly Qin continent. However, in terms of prosperity, Five Elemental City had already surpassed Perpetual Joy City. After all, the Five Elemental Dao Palace was about to open. Cultivators from all over the world had rushed here to witness this grand occasion. Demonic beasts could not enter the city. However, there was a place outside the city that specialized in rearing them. After leaving the golden-winged great rock outside the city and paying the rearing fee, Xiaochen stepped into Five Elemental City. Strolling along the streets, one could see that there were people everywhere at a glance. They were just like ants squeezed together. Moreover, due to the continuous influx of people, the restaurants and inns within Five Element City were all fully booked. The business of all the shops was so good that it was a complete mess. He arrived at the 100 Immortals building in Five Elemental City. As soon as he entered, a maid came to welcome him. She recognized Xiaochen at first glance and smiled respectfully. "Prince Xiao, please come with me." Xiaochen's followers had already arrived. The maid led him to a pavilion in the backyard. At that moment, there were already 12 young geniuses in the pavilion. When they saw Xiaochen arrive, they all stood up and bowed respectfully. "Greetings, King Bewitching Sword." "Ha, you're too polite. Please have a seat," said Xiaochen with a smile. Then, he walked towards the main seat and sat down. After Xiaochen sat down, the crowd went back to their seats. Begging for recommendation, begging for monthly votes. Chapter 236. Since the last time they parted at the Thousand Island Lake, everyone gathered again. This time, the 12 hangers-on under Xiaochen were all looking at Xiaochen with admiration. It had only been a few months since the farewell at the Thousand Island Lake, but the things that Xiaochen had done were all talked about enthusiastically. Beating up the Lihua King Fenglingya in Changle City and killing the demon envoy's son in East Pass City. All of these things made everyone admire him. Ever since they chose to become Xiao Chen's followers at the Thousand Island Lake, they were already in the same boat. They were bound together for good or ill. Xiao Chen was able to suppress the Lihua King Fenglingye and kill the demon envoy's son. Everyone was also proud because they were Xiao Chen's followers. Facing the worship of his 12 followers, Xiao Chen smiled and said, "Everyone, you don't have to look at me like that. Since it's rare for us to gather together, let's have a good drink today. The upcoming trip to the Five Elements Dao Palace will probably be very difficult. I hope that everyone can bring out their true abilities." It was rare for them to gather together again, so Xiao Chen wanted to have a good time with everyone. After all, such opportunities to relax were rare. The Five Elements Dao Palace was about to begin, and it would definitely be a fierce battle. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, everyone agreed and drank to their heart's content. While Xiao Chen and his followers were drinking to their heart's content, in a private room of the 100 Immortals' house in the Five Elements City, the 100 Flower Fairy, who was known as the leader of the 10 Beauties, actually appeared. The maid who was in charge of leading Xiao Chen to the backyard was now standing respectfully in front of the 100 Flower Fairy. The 100 Flower Fairy calmly said, "Is he here?" "Fairy, I've just arrived," the maid replied respectfully. The Flower Fairy was naturally here for Xiao Chen. As the leader of the 10 alluring beauties, the Flower Fairy had a special liking for Xiao Chen. Even the other prides of heaven were not worthy of her attention. Only Xiao Chen was able to captivate the Flower Fairy. Ever since they parted at the Thousand Island Lake, Flower Fairy knew everything that Xiao Chen had done. Defeating King Huijiao, killing the son of the demon envoy, all of these proved that Xiao Chen was not an ordinary person. And this was precisely what attracted Flower Fairy the most. Knowing that Xiao Chen would definitely come to Five Elements City, 100 Flower Fairy came. She even used some tricks to get Xiao Chen's followers to meet at Five Elements City's 100 Immortals Tower. Slowly getting up, 100 Flower Fairy walked into the inner room. She gently took off her clothes and gently walked into the wooden tub filled with flower petals. A fairy taking a bath. If any man were to see this scene, they would probably drool. Even the female servant could not help but reveal a blush on her face as she gently wiped her body and looked at her body that was enough to charm all living things. After half an hour, the Flower Fairy finished bathing and changed into a bright red robe. She looked like a beautiful rose, charming all living things. A faint smile hung on the corner of her mouth. Then, "Young Master Zhou's matter has been settled?" "It's all done," the maid replied respectfully. Hearing the maid's reply, the Flower Fairy's smile became even brighter. Then, she walked out of the room. They didn't know what the Flower Fairy was planning. They didn't know that the Flower Fairy was in Five Elements City. After drinking so much, Xiao Chen and the rest were a little drunk. Of course, this was also because they didn't use the spiritual energy in their bodies. Their faces were a little red. At this moment, one of them suddenly saw the Flower Fairy walking by. With a shocked expression, he said to Xiao Chen, "King Jiao, look, isn't that the Flower Fairy?" Everyone knew that the Flower Fairy was in love with Xiao Chen. However, Xiao Chen didn't accept her in the end. Now that they met again and heard this person's words, Xiao Chen also looked at the Flower Fairy. She was still as beautiful as ever. Purely based on feelings, the Flower Fairy was definitely more attractive to men than Qin Shuru. This wasn't to say that Qin Shuru wasn't as beautiful as the Flower Fairy, but rather that Qin Shuru was too cold, while the Flower Fairy was as gentle as water. Seeing the Flower Fairy walk by from afar, Xiao Chen frowned. To be able to see her here, he was a little curious as to why the Flower Fairy would appear here. However, since she didn't greet him, Xiao Chen wouldn't take the initiative to approach her. Back then, he had already rejected her at the Thousand Island Lake. Xiao Chen didn't want to have too much contact with her because this woman was just too attractive. Xiao Chen was young and impetuous. It was normal for sparks to fly between them, so it was best to stay away from her. The Flower Fairy's appearance was just a small gap. Along with her disappearance, the group didn't think too much about it. After a round of drinking, the group prepared to leave. As for the place to rest, it had already been arranged, so Xiao Chen didn't need to worry about it. "Did you guys hear?" Today, young Master Zhou invited the Flower Fairy, and the Flower Fairy actually agreed. Oh my god. Are you serious? The Flower Fairy really agreed to young Master Zhou's invitation? How could it be fake? I personally saw the Flower Fairy enter the private room in the backyard. Just as they were about to leave, Xiao Chen and the others heard the news. The Flower Fairy actually went to accompany some young Master Zhou. Hearing this news, Xiao Chen's retainers were immediately enraged. What kind of joke was this? The head of the 10 alluring beauties, Flower Fairy, actually went to accompany another man? Humans were selfish and overbearing. Although Xiao Chen had rejected the Flower Fairy, in the eyes of the crowd, the Flower Fairy could only belong to Xiao Chen, and only Xiao Chen was worthy of her. Compared to the raging crowd, Xiao Chen's expression was very calm. However, a cold glint flashed in his eyes, which quickly disappeared. Looking at the enraged crowd, Xiao Chen said indifferently, "Let's go. King Jiao, the Flower Fairy is now." Seeing that Xiao Chen didn't seem to care about this matter, one of the retainers said anxiously, "What does it have to do with me?" Hearing this, Xiao Chen said indifferently, and then walked out of the 100 Immortals' house. There weren't many changes because of the Flower Fairy's matter. Although there was a trace of discomfort in his heart, it was nothing more than that. Xiao Chen left. Seeing this, Xiao Chen's retainers looked at each other, and then helplessly chased after him. In their hearts, they were puzzled. Towards a peerless beauty like the Flower Fairy, was Xiao Chen really not moved at all? If it was any other man who heard that the Flower Fairy was with another man, perhaps they would have already gone crazy. However, Xiao Chen was actually so calm. Not caring about this, Xiao Chen walked at the front, and at this moment, a helpless smile hung on the corner of his mouth. In just a moment, Xiao Chen knew that this matter was deliberately arranged by the Flower Fairy. Looking for collection, looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Chapter 237. With a single glance, he could see through Flower Fairy's little scheme. Sit and accompany that young Master Zhou? Was that even possible? One had to know that even a genius wouldn't be able to make Flower Fairy sit and accompany them. This young Master Zhou who came out of nowhere actually made Flower Fairy sit and accompany them. What a joke! The only explanation was that the whole thing was self-directed by Flower Fairy, and that young Master Zhou was just following her orders. As for why Flower Fairy did this, it was obviously because of Xiao Chen. She wanted to make Xiao Chen jealous. She traveled thousands of miles from the Thousand Island Lake to Five Elements City, and even directed and acted out this farce. Her goal was to make him jealous. Along the way, Xiao Chen smiled helplessly. Everyone said that Flower Fairy was not only beautiful, but also unparalleled in intelligence. She could be called a perfect woman, but why was she so childish this time? However, it was precisely because of this childishness that Flower Fairy showed her cute side, as well as her feelings for Xiao Chen. Otherwise, she wouldn't have done this. On the way back to their residence, Xiao Chen and the others lived in a separate courtyard rented by a retainer. It wasn't big, but it was enough to satisfy Xiao Chen and the others' daily needs. In addition, they couldn't stay here for long. At most, in 5 or 6 days, the Dao Palace of 5 Elements would open. At that time, they would have to enter the Dao Palace of 5 Elements. They directly returned to their residence. At the same time, Flower Fairy, who was in the 100 Immortals' house, heard the news. Her pretty face immediately sank and she shouted, "Damn Xiao Chen, stinky wood, rotten wood," anger overflowed. Opposite Flower Fairy was a handsome young man with an extraordinary temperament. At this time, he was somewhat nervous and didn't know whether to stand or sit. He was the so-called Mr. Zhou. His status was not bad, but it was only limited to the 5 Elements City. Originally, the whole thing was just as Xiao Chen thought, a plot directed and acted by Flower Fairy. Unfortunately, as the main character, Xiao Chen did not follow the script at all and left directly. As a result, Flower Fairy naturally could not continue with the act. After a series of curses, 100 Flower Fairy coldly glanced at young Master Zhou and mercilessly shouted, "Scram!" Poor young Master Zhou, at this moment, he had become 100 Flower Fairy's punching bag. However, he didn't dare to complain and quickly left the room. After shouting at young Master Zhou, Flower Fairy became angrier and angrier. Damn Xiaochen, was she so unbearable? He wasn't even willing to look at her. One must know that in the entire Heavenly Chen continent, with one word from Flower Fairy, there were countless people who would be willing to go through water and tread on fire for her. However, Xiaochen completely ignored her, which was a huge blow to Flower Fairy's heart. After cursing Xiaochen repeatedly in her heart, Flower Fairy angrily left 100 Immortals Tower and went straight to Xiaochen's residence. The residence of Xiaochen and the others was not far from the 100 Immortals' house. Soon, 100 Flower Fairy arrived outside the courtyard. A guest opened the door for her. When he saw that it was 100 Flower Fairy, he immediately let her in with a knowing look on his face. Flower Fairy must be here to look for the Demon Sword King? He's in the East Room. He didn't stop her and even took the initiative to tell her where Xiao Chen's room was. Hearing this, Flower Fairy smiled at him. Seeing this, a look of infatuation appeared on the guest's face. It wasn't until Flower Fairy left that he slowly regained his senses. Xiaochen didn't expect Flower Fairy to come directly to his door. At this time, he was cultivating with his eyes closed. Suddenly, the door was pushed open and Flower Fairy angrily walked in. When she saw Xiaochen, she immediately scolded. "Xiaochen, you've gone too far. Am I so unbearable in your eyes? You're not even willing to look at me, is that it?" She scolded angrily. However, as she spoke, tears welled up in her eyes. Seeing this, Xiaochen was speechless. In the entire Heavenly Chen continent, there weren't many people who dared to barge into Xiaochen's residence and scold him. There were only a few Demon Sword Kings. Now, there was Flower Fairy. Moreover, facing her scolding, Xiaochen couldn't do anything. After all, he couldn't beat her up, right? Looking at Flower Fairy's tear-stained face, Xiaochen felt helpless. He stood up and walked in front of Flower Fairy with a complicated expression. "Why do you say that? You're as beautiful as a fairy. I've always been unable to match up to you." He really didn't want to have too much to do with Flower Fairy. First of all, he already had Qin Shuru. Although polygamy was common in Heavenly Chen continent, Xiaochen didn't want to break Qin Shuru's heart. Moreover, he didn't want to spend too much energy on relationships. Since Flower Fairy was here today, he might as well make things clear. Thinking about this, Xiaochen opened his mouth. His words were very direct. Hearing this, Flower Fairy fell silent. Her expression kept changing. Regarding this, Xiaochen didn't know what to say. He could only stand to the side and choose to remain silent. Since he had already said this, he believed that Flower Fairy should be able to understand. After a long while, Flower Fairy finally stopped crying. The look in her eyes gradually became firm, as if she had made up her mind about something. Looking at Xiaochen, Flower Fairy shouted as if she had used all of her strength to do so. "Xiaochen, I like you. I just like you. In Thousand Island Lake, I fell in love with you the first time I saw you. Today, I'll tell you, I'll stick to you for the rest of my life. I don't care what you think, I just like you. I want to marry you. You can't get rid of me. You can't get rid of me." The dignified leader of the 10 beauties of the 100 Immortals' house, Fairy 100 Flower, was actually acting shamelessly at this moment. After saying those words, Fairy 100 Flower's face turned incomparably red. Clearly, such a blatant confession had caused Fairy 100 Flower to feel ashamed and indignant. However, she did not regret it. Back when they parted ways at the Thousand Island Lake, she had tried to forget Xiaochen. Unfortunately, she did not succeed. Instead, she missed Xiaochen more and more. There were several times when Fairy 100 Flower wanted to personally head to Nine Firmament's palace to look for Xiaochen. He looked at Flower Fairy with a dumbfounded expression. He had never thought that Flower Fairy, the woman of countless people's dreams, would say such words. As the two of them were in a daze, Xiaochen, who had his back facing the window, did not notice that there was a man in black clothes hiding outside his window. Seeing Xiaochen in a daze, killing intent flashed out from the man's eyes. With a swing of his right hand, a poisonous throwing knife shot towards Xiaochen with lightning-like speed. Someone wanted to assassinate Xiaochen. The moment the man in black made his move, the face of Flower Fairy, who was standing before Xiaochen, sank. Without any time to consider, she instinctively pushed Xiaochen away, allowing him to avoid the fatal attack. Unfortunately, the throwing knife did not hit Xiaochen. Instead, it pierced into Flower Fairy's chest. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 238. At this critical moment, 100 Flower Fairy did not consider her own safety at all. She only wanted to save Xiaochen. Seeing 100 Flower Fairy's blood splatter, Xiaochen quickly reacted. He grabbed 100 Flower Fairy by the waist, his face full of worry. At the same time, 100 Flower Fairy's face quickly turned pale. Clearly, the poison on the flying dagger had begun to spread all over her body. Realizing that the flying dagger was actually soaked in poison, Xiaochen's expression changed drastically. At the same time, Xiaochen also noticed the black-clothed man hiding outside the window. Clearly, the black-clothed man had been hiding here for quite some time. His ability to hide his aura was superb. Previously, this black-clothed man had seized the moment when he was distracted to attack. If 100 Flower Fairy had not risked her life to save him, he probably would not have been able to dodge that fatal blow. Seeing that Xiaochen was not injured at all and that 100 Flower Fairy had blocked that fatal blow for him, a trace of disappointment flashed across the black-clothed man's eyes. At the same time, Xiaochen, who was in the room, suddenly exploded with a powerful force. The powerful force instantly destroyed the entire room. Holding 100 Flower Fairy in his arms, Xiaochen looked coldly at the black-clothed man. His eyes were overflowing with killing intent as he said, "Speak, who are you?" His killing intent had reached its peak. In response to Xiaochen's question, the black-clothed man did not answer. What responded to Xiaochen was the appearance of over 100 black-clothed men in the surrounding darkness. There was still a backup plan. Seeing the appearance of over 100 black-clothed men, Xiaochen already knew that this was a meticulously planned assassination. And the target of this assassination was obviously him. Such a huge change naturally alarmed the 12 prodigy hangers-on under Xiaochen. At this moment, the 12 of them broke out of their rooms. When they saw that the small courtyard had been surrounded by over 100 black-clothed men, their expressions changed drastically. In Five Elements City, there was actually someone who dared to attack King Jiao. This was simply insane. However, these black-clothed men clearly did not give Xiaochen a chance. Almost at the same time, over 100 Sky Realm black-clothed men charged towards Xiaochen. Their target was only Xiaochen, so they had no interest in Xiaochen's hangers-on. Everyone's target was Xiaochen. "King Jiao, be careful." Seeing Xiaochen being surrounded by so many black-clothed men, one of the hangers-on called out. Hearing this, Xiaochen threw 100 Flower Fairy to this person and coldly said, "Take care of her." After instructing one of the hangers-on to take care of 100 Flower Fairy, Xiaochen's storage ring flashed with light. The Crimson Edge sword instantly appeared in his hand, and he instantly used the dragon transformation. Facing over 100 Sky Realm black-clothed men, Xiaochen did not hold back at all. In addition, at this moment, the killing intent in Xiaochen's heart was exploding. No matter who these black-clothed men were, they were all going to die today. Facing over 100 black-clothed men by himself, even if Xiaochen still had 12 prodigy hangers-on with him, as they were not King Jiao, they obviously could not kill someone who was an entire cultivation level higher than them. Therefore, even if these 12 prodigies fought to the death, they could only hold off one black-clothed assassin at most. Xiaochen would still have to face the majority of the black-clothed men himself. "Attack, kill Xiaochen, quick!" One of the black-clothed men coldly shouted. In response, Xiaochen directly pointed his finger and used the Chun Jun sword finger. Sword shadows filled the sky and instantly enveloped the black-clothed man. Trapped in the sky full of sword shadows, even with his sky realm cultivation, this black-clothed man did not last long before he was killed by Xiaochen. No matter who you are, you will all die today. After killing one of the black-clothed men, Xiaochen did not advance. Instead, he retreated and immediately engaged in a fierce battle with these black-clothed men. He could not forget the scene of Hundred Flower Fairy blocking a blade for him. If Xiaochen could still ignore Hundred Flower Fairy before, he obviously could not do so now. After experiencing this incident, Hundred Flower Fairy had already entered Xiaochen's heart. At the same time, Xiaochen also felt a faint trace of affection for Hundred Flower Fairy. Faced with such a perfect woman, he believed that no man would refuse. Moreover, Hundred Flower Fairy had saved his life and did not hesitate to block a blade for him. How could Xiaochen not be moved by this? After a fierce battle, Xiaochen's combat strength clearly exceeded the black-clothed men's expectations. At the same time, after the battle, Xiaochen also confirmed the identities of these black-clothed men. They were demonic cultivators. These hundreds of black-clothed men were all demonic cultivators. Demonic cultivators had set up a trap to assassinate him. Soon, Xiaochen guessed that all of this was probably the demon envoy's idea. He had killed the son of a demon envoy in Eastern Pass City, and the demon envoy wanted revenge. However, all this time, the Pill Cloud Dominator had been protecting him, so it was difficult for the demon envoy to take action. Moreover, the Heavenly Qin continent was very strict with the investigation of demonic cultivators. It was not possible to sneak into the Central Divine Region or Five Elements City secretly. Therefore, the demon envoy had mobilized hundreds of Celestial Realm demonic cultivators to kill him. Originally, the demon envoy thought that mobilizing hundreds of Celestial Realm demonic cultivators would be enough to kill Xiaochen, let alone assassinate him. However, the demon envoy clearly did not expect Xiaochen's combat strength to be so strong. Moreover, in the first attack, Hundred Flower Fairy blocked the most dangerous blade for Xiaochen in the face of a sure-kill attack. Xiaochen was fighting against hundreds of Celestial Realm demonic cultivators all by himself. It was only at this moment that Xiaochen showed his true strength. His eyes were scarlet. Under the effect of the dragon transformation, he looked like a human-shaped Tyrannosaurus. Every strike of his was immensely powerful. Xiaochen did not care about his injuries at all. The only thing on his mind was to kill. The murderous intent in his heart made Xiaochen want to kill all the black-clad men in front of him. Damn it, this kid's combat strength, the intelligence was wrong. Xiaochen's absolute fighting prowess made these demonic cultivators turn pale with fright. According to the information they had, the limit of the fighting prowess of the top 10 prides was equivalent to that of an ordinary warrior of the Celestial Realm, and this was under the condition that they had used their secret techniques. But now, in the face of hundreds of Celestial Realm demonic cultivators, Xiaochen could actually do this. Although he had also suffered serious injuries, Xiaochen had already killed 3 Celestial Realm demonic cultivators in less than 100 breaths of time since the battle began. He was no longer equivalent to a Celestial Realm demonic cultivator, but capable of killing a Celestial Realm demonic cultivator. The difference between the two could be said to be the difference between heaven and earth. They had completely underestimated Xiaochen's combat strength. In other words, the demonic cultivators had underestimated the growth rate of the 10 prides. Being able to match a Celestial Realm demonic cultivator was the combat strength of the 10 prides a few months ago. Now that several months had passed, the 10 prides naturally could not remain in the same place. Although several months might be a short period of time for an ordinary demonic cultivator, it was enough for the 10 prides to make a qualitative leap. Therefore, the current Celestial Realm demonic cultivator could only be insta-killed in front of the 10 prides. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 239. Faced with the attacks of more than 100 Celestial being Realm demonic cultivators, Xiaochen's eyes were completely bloodshot. Even so, with such a huge gap in numbers, Xiaochen gradually fell into a disadvantageous position and began to show signs of fatigue. On the other hand, the 100 Shoma cultivators quickly calmed down after the panic just now. These people could be said to be men of sacrifice. In order to kill Xiaochen, they had secretly sneaked into 5 Elements City. From the moment the operation began, these more than 100 demonic cultivators had never thought that they could leave alive, because whether they succeeded or not, they had already been exposed. There was no chance for them to leave 5 Elements City alive. It was precisely because they no longer cared about their own lives that these hundreds of demonic cultivators were completely blinded by bloodlust. No matter what, they had to kill the Demon Sword King Xiaochen today. This was the order of the Demon Envoy. They were gradually losing. There was no other way. No matter how strong Xiaochen was, he was still only at the initial success of the Earth Realm. Facing over 100 Sky Realm cultivators, he naturally had no hope of winning. The difference was too great. Now, Xiaochen could only stall for time until the experts from 5 Elements City arrived. Don't waste time. Kill him, quick. Knowing that they couldn't drag on for too long, one of the Shoma cultivators coldly shouted. Just as he finished speaking, a black figure flashed past and immediately joined the battle. He was dressed in black and wore a pair of black metal gloves on his fists. He was the godly fist prodigy, Lin Nua, of the 10 prodigies. Because the 5-element Dao Palace was about to open, the 10 Godly Fist King and their followers were all in 5-element city. The Godly Fist King Lin Nua's residence was not far from Xiaochen's, so after noticing the change, Lin Nua immediately rushed over and chose to join the battle without any hesitation. Another King of Prides had arrived. Moreover, Lin Nua's strength had clearly improved by leaps and bounds compared to several months ago. His 2 fists were like 2 dragons emerging from the sea. Caught off guard, a Shoma cultivator's heart was immediately shattered and he died on the spot. Lin Nua killed a person in 1 move. Seeing this, the 100 Shoma cultivators were once again stunned. Were the 10 Godly Fist Kings of the Tianqian continent all monsters? How could he grow to such an extent in just a few months? The demonic cultivators attached great importance to the 10 prides of the heavenly Qin continent. Therefore, the information on them was constantly updated. But now, the 10 prides of the heavenly Qin continent were growing faster than the demonic cultivators could gather information on them. How terrifying was that? Lin Nua smiled at Xiaochen and said, "Brother Xiao, it shouldn't be a problem for me to intervene in such a lively situation, right?" Lin Nua had also guessed the identity of these black-clothed men, so he didn't hold back at all. Everyone had the right to kill a demonic cultivator, not to mention that he, Lin Nua, was a proud king, the leader of the younger generation. As soon as Lin Nua said this, before Xiaochen could reply, a loud laugh rang out from the dark night. "Ha! How can I miss out on such a lively event?" Along with this voice, the barbarian King Huanggu rushed out from the darkness like a wild beast. With a mountain-suppressing lean, he instantly sent a demonic cultivator flying. The sound of bones breaking resounded as the demonic cultivator spat out a mouthful of blood. Immediately, the demonic cultivator died. Another proud king had arrived. It was obvious that the ambush here had attracted a lot of attention. Seeing more and more people coming, the demonic cultivators became more and more anxious. Their attacks became even more ruthless. No matter what, they had to kill Xiaochen today. Otherwise, they would have died for nothing. 3 proud kings had already appeared. However, this was only the beginning. In just a few short breaths, an intoxicating flute sound rang out. A demonic cultivator seemed to have lost his mind as he stood there with a dull look in his eyes. Then, a young man wearing a blue robe walked out from the darkness and casually twisted the demonic cultivator's head off. The immortal music proud King Gumu, the 4th proud king, had appeared. The immortal music proud king's reputation was indeed well-deserved. He effortlessly twisted the head of a heaven realm demonic cultivator. "I say, why did you guys come so quickly? And Brother Xiao, what did you do?" Did you dig up the ancestral graves of demonic cultivators? Why are there so many demonic cultivators here to kill you? Gumu's appearance was followed by a gentle voice. The voice was like a spring breeze. However, a fire dragon descended from the sky and instantly burned a demonic cultivator into nothingness. The burning spear proud King Huangfu Ao had arrived. Demon sword Xiaochen, godly fist Lin Noa, barbarian King Huanggu, immortal music Gumu, and burning spear Huangfu Ao, a total of 5 proud kings had appeared. Just as Huangfu Ao's voice fell, several golden talismans shot out from the darkness and accurately hit a demonic cultivator. With a boom, a powerful force directly blew the demonic cultivator into pieces. Brother Xiao, did you really dig up the ancestral graves of demonic cultivators? You actually didn't hesitate to come to 5 Elements City to kill you. Heavenly Lightning proud King Lan Xiao appeared. 6 proud kings had appeared. However, this wasn't the end. After Lan Xiao's appearance, Bloodwood proud King Mu, Distant Fire proud King Fenglingya, and Snow Fairy Ouyang Roshue, these 3 proud kings had also appeared. The wood fusion palm shot out and the huge blood-red palm directly killed a demonic Xiaoma. As for the Lihua proud king, Fenglingya, he flicked his finger and a heavenly flame shot out, instantly killing another demonic Xiaoma. As for Ouyang Roshue, she lightly danced with her longsword. Wherever her sword light enveloped, snowflakes floated down from the sky. These seemingly soft and beautiful snowflakes were incomparably sharp. They instantly cut a demonic cultivator into pieces. 9 proud kings had appeared. Only the immortal sword Guduwuya hadn't appeared yet. After killing the demonic cultivator in front of him, Mu faintly smiled and said, "Everyone's here. Only Brother Gudu isn't here. Sorry, I'm a little late. However, it's no big deal." Just as Mu's voice fell, Guduwuya descended from the sky with a sword in hand. With a slash, the sharp sword light instantly killed a demonic cultivator. Following Guduwuya's appearance, the 10 proud kings had all gathered. Moreover, from the shore exchange just now, it wasn't hard to see that the 10 proud kings had grown a lot in the past few months. They were far from what they were at the Thousand Island Lake. Although the 10 proud kings' cultivations were only at the initial mastery of the Earth Mirror Realm, in terms of true battle strength, they could probably easily suppress Sky Realm martial artists. Facing the encirclement of more than 100 demonic cultivators, the 10 proud kings didn't mind at all. Looking at the crowd, Xiaochen didn't say anything. Xiaochen was in a very bad mood. Without wasting any time, Xiaochen directly charged towards the demonic cultivators. When Xiaochen made his move, Huangfu Ao also said with a hint of playfulness, "Let's see who can kill more demonic cultivators." "Sure." "Ah, then I won't hold back." Chapter 240. Against over 100 demonic cultivators, the 10 prides had actually started a competition. Hearing the crowd's words, the demonic cultivators were furious. They had been completely underestimated. Immediately, a demonic cultivator shouted coldly, courting death. "Kill them all. If we can eliminate the 10 prides in one fell swoop, it would be a supreme honor." The 10 prides were indeed heaven-defying. However, the current situation was 10 against 100. Under such circumstances, the 10 prides were still so arrogant. They were simply courting death. The two sides engaged in a fierce battle. After the 10 prides had appeared one after another, the prides and mercenaries who had been fighting a bloody battle seemed to have nothing to do now. The demonic cultivators also seemed to have no interest in them, only wanting to kill the 10 prides. Watching the intense battle, a demonic cultivator said in a daze, "Do you think we can win?" It was simply too exaggerated. 10 against 100, and it was a battle of a higher realm. Could they really win? Their gazes were all fixed on the battle before them. It wasn't just the demonic cultivators. The experts of 5 Elements City who had already arrived in the sky didn't make a move either. They were similarly stunned as they watched the battle between the 10 prides and the demonic cultivators below. 3 men and 1 woman, all of whom were at the Dao Gate realm. The 4 Dao Gate realm experts were similarly shocked as they watched the battle below. Among them, the beautiful woman couldn't help but exclaim, "So this is the prides? To think that they could grow to such an extent in just a few months." Hearing the beautiful woman's words, the middle-aged man beside her said, "It's only been a short time since the Thousand Island Lake, and the 10 prides can already suppress sky-human stage cultivators with ease. This growth speed is simply ridiculous. It seems that ever since the 10 prides appeared, their strength would increase by a level every time they appear," another person said. "They were originally here to rescue, but from the current situation, it seemed like they didn't need to do anything. The 10 prides were completely capable of killing these demonic cultivators. 10 people had slaughtered nearly 100 demonic cultivators. This was simply too shocking. Not to mention that the 10 great prodigies were only at the initial success of the Earth Mirror realm. Even if 10 Sky Realm cultivators came, they would probably not be a match for this group of demonic cultivators at the same cultivation level. However, the 10 great prodigies had done it. As the battle continued, the 10 great geniuses were also injured one after another. However, in comparison, the demonic cultivators suffered even greater losses. Nearly half of them had been killed, leaving less than 60 people alive. 10 martial artists of the initial success of the Earth Mirror realm had actually killed more than 40 martial artists of the Celestial realm. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, who would have believed that this was no longer as simple as a battle between martial artists of a higher realm? Haha, the 4th one. "Brother Huangfu, aren't you going to do your best? You're the one who suggested this competition. If we end up at the bottom, it won't look good." Huang Gu laughed loudly as he held the head of a demonic cultivator in his hand. Then, he looked at Huangfu Ao, who was engaged in a fierce battle with the other demonic cultivators. Huang Gu had already killed 4 demonic cultivators. Upon hearing Huang Gu's words, Huangfu Ao's spear shot out like a dragon. Raging flames burned the sky as he stabbed out, instantly killing the demonic cultivator in front of him. "I've also killed 4, Huangfu Ao said to Huang Gu with a smile after killing the demonic cultivator. It could be said that the 10 great prodigies had used all their means. It was also in this fierce battle that the 10 great prodigies had displayed their strength to the extreme. Witnessing the fierce battle with their own eyes, the elite hangers-on felt a sense of helplessness in their hearts. Back at the Thousand Island Lake, the 10 great prodigies were already far ahead of the other geniuses. However, in just a few short months, the 10 great prodigies had actually improved so much. The gap between them had grown even wider. They couldn't even bring themselves to compete with the 10 great prodigies. The 10 great prodigies' growth rate was so fast that the other geniuses couldn't keep up with them. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before the 10 great prodigies would truly break away from the other geniuses. After all, the other geniuses wouldn't be able to stand on the same level as them. As the battle became more and more intense, the 10 great prodigies killed more and more demonic cultivators. However, in this fierce battle, the 10 great prodigies' injuries naturally became more and more serious. There were still over 40 demonic cultivators left. At this moment, the 4 Dao Gate realm experts standing proudly in the sky didn't just stand by and watch. Although the 10 great prodigies might be able to kill the 40 demonic cultivators with the current situation, the 10 great prodigies would definitely be severely injured if they did so. The 5 Elemental Dao Palace was about to open, and it wouldn't be a good thing for the 10 great prodigies to be injured at this moment. Therefore, the 4 Dao Gate realm experts chose to take action at this moment. 4 terrifying auras descended from the sky. Sensing the auras, the 40 demonic cultivators who were lucky enough to survive immediately had a drastic change in expression as they cried out in shock. "Dao Gate realm experts, die, you scoundrels!" With a furious roar, the 4 Dao Gate realm experts appeared one after another. When the Dao Gate realm experts took action, it quickly turned into a massacre. In the hands of the Dao Gate realm experts, the demonic cultivators who were only at the Sky realm had no room to resist at all. In less than 10 minutes, they were all slaughtered by the 4 Dowgate realm experts. At the end of the battle, the 10 great prodigies were all bathed in blood, but there was a faint smile on each of their faces. After this battle, the 10 great prodigies had shown the world their growth over the past few months. At the same time, the gap between them and the other 10 great prodigies hadn't widened. This was what made them the happiest. After all, in the entire Heavenly Chin continent, only the 10 great prodigies could make them feel some joy. It was much more interesting to have 100 flowers blooming together than to have a single branch standing out. It seems like everyone hasn't slacked off during this period of time. This is what makes it interesting. It seems like the 5 elemental Dao Palace won't be so boring. Lin Nua, the king of Divine Fist, laughed out loud. Is that so? Brother Lin, you have to be careful. If you become the weakest existence in the 5 elemental Dao Palace, then it won't be interesting. Hearing Lin Nua's words, Huangfu Ao laughed. After the battle, the kings of prides teased and laughed with each other. But soon, everyone noticed Xiaochen. At this moment, Xiaochen had already arrived in front of the 100-flower fairy. Looking at the dying 100-flower fairy, Xiaochen's expression was still extremely gloomy. It didn't change in the slightest because of the victory of the battle. She's poisoned. At this moment, Ouyang Roshua had unknowingly appeared behind Xiaochen. Looking at the pale face of the 100-flower fairy, she said. As the daughter of Dao Master Dan Yun and the king of Heaven Dan Valley, Ouyang Roshua could naturally see that the 100-flower fairy was poisoned. As soon as she finished speaking, without waiting for Xiaochen's reply, Ouyang Roshua walked over to the 100-flower fairy and bent down to check on her condition. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 241. As someone who had been in contact with alchemy since young, Xiaochen was clearly inferior to Ouyang Roshua in terms of alchemy. However, even Ouyang Roshua shook her head helplessly after a careful examination of 100-flower fairy's injuries. I can't tell what poison she was poisoned with, so I can't cure it. Even 100-flower fairy couldn't tell what poison Ouyang Roshua was poisoned with. Hearing this, everyone who had arrived behind Xiaochen had a heavy expression. Even Ouyang Roshua couldn't cure the poison. This was equivalent to sentencing 100-flower fairy to death. They fell into silence. Xiaochen did not reply after Fairy of 100 Flowers finished speaking. He gently embraced Fairy of 100 Flowers in his arms. At the same time, feeling Xiaochen's embrace, Fairy of 100 Flowers forced a smile. Don't you hate me? After this incident, Xiaochen's attitude towards her had changed greatly. Before, he was respectful and distant, but now he was extremely gentle. 100-flower fairy liked this feeling very much. Although she might die soon, if she could leave a place in Xiaochen's heart that belonged to her, 100-flower fairy wouldn't regret it. Who would have thought that 100-flower fairy, the head of the 10 beauties of the 100 Immortals Tower, would be such an infatuated woman? Love at first sight, love for life. After seeing Xiaochen for the first time, 100-flower fairy couldn't forget Xiaochen. This time, Xiaochen didn't avoid 100-flower fairy's love. He gently stroked her hair and leaned over to kiss her forehead. Finally, Xiaochen said softly, "What a silly girl." Hearing Xiaochen's words, 100-flower fairy smiled, her face full of happiness. Even though her life was coming to an end, she finally made Xiaochen accept her. Although she was still somewhat unwilling, 100-flower fairy was already very happy. The lovers finally got married, but it was a pity that this warmth only bloomed for a moment. As 100-flower fairy's breath became weaker and weaker, everyone present could only watch as this peerless fairy passed away. Xiaochen, I'm so tired. I want to sleep for a while. 100-flower fairy's eyes were slowly closing as she murmured softly. Hearing 100-flower fairy's words, Xiaochen said softly, "Okay, I'll accompany you." Xiaochen did not know what to say. All he could do was to stay by flower fairy's side. While they were talking, the blood on Xiaochen's body inadvertently dripped onto the corner of flower fairy's mouth and flowed into her mouth. The drop of blood was swallowed by flower fairy. To everyone's surprise, Flower Fairy's face actually became rosy. Although the poison was still there, her face was no longer pale. Xiaochen, you. Facing this change, even Ouyang Roshua was astonished. She seemed to have guessed something. Xiaochen's blood can detoxify the poison? Xiaochen also noticed the change in 100 Flower Fairy and was slightly surprised. Soon after, he recalled that he had a mysterious bloodline power in his body. Could it be that the power of his bloodline had taken effect? Xiaochen wasn't sure if his bloodline power could save 100 Flower Fairy, but even if there was only a slim chance, he still wanted to try. Without thinking too much, Xiaochen carried the unconscious 100 Flower Fairy and said to the surrounding people, "Thank you everyone for today. I'll treat everyone to a drink next time." The appearance of the 9 prides today was indeed a great help. If not, Xiaochen wouldn't have been able to defeat those demonic cultivators by himself. Without waiting for a reply, Xiaochen directly carried 100 Flower Fairy into the room. Naturally, the crowd didn't say anything and quickly dispersed. As for the corpses on the ground, the people of 5 Elements City would deal with them. Everyone left one after another. In the room, Xiaochen placed 100 Flower Fairy on the bed and used a small knife to cut open a wound on his wrist. A stream of warm blood flowed out from the wound and flowed directly into 100 Flower Fairy's mouth. That drop of blood just now was enough to make 100 Flower Fairy's face rosy. And now, Xiaochen was clearly feeding 100 Flower Fairy his blood without any regard for the consequences. As the blood continuously flowed into her body, 100 Flower Fairy's face became increasingly rosy. In less than 100 breaths, she had already returned to normal. While feeding her blood, Xiaochen checked on 100 Flower Fairy's changes. His face gradually revealed a trace of joy. It worked. His blood could indeed cure the poison in 100 Flower Fairy's body. Although the speed was a little slow, but Xiaochen could clearly feel that the poison in 100 Flower Fairy's body was constantly being broken down and purified. It worked, it really worked. After confirming that his blood could really save 100 Flower Fairy, Xiaochen was wild with joy. Ignoring the rapid loss of blood, Xiaochen even actively circulated the spiritual energy in his body to force out his blood and feed it to 100 Flower Fairy. After a full hour, after confirming that the poison in 100 Flower Fairy's body had disappeared, Xiaochen finally stopped. However, because he had lost too much blood, Xiaochen was now very weak. His face was pale and his breath was extremely weak. After swallowing a healing pill, he didn't pay too much attention to his own condition. He was just a little weak. On the other hand, 100 Flower Fairy could finally rest assured. Her face was frighteningly pale, but a faint smile hung on the corner of her mouth. Gently stroking 100 Flower Fairy's long hair, Xiaochen said with a smile, "Silly girl, if I don't allow you to die, you can't die." After saying that, Xiaochen sat cross-legged on the bed and began to recuperate. After a night of silence, when the next morning came, 100 Flower Fairy, who had been unconscious for the whole night, slowly opened her eyes. She looked at her surroundings in confusion and softly muttered, "Am I dead?" She thought she was dead, but when she saw Xiaochen sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, 100 Flower Fairy was first stunned. After regaining her senses, she shouted in surprise, "Xiaochen!" She didn't expect to see Xiaochen again. Hearing 100 Flower Fairy's voice, Xiaochen also slowly opened his eyes and smiled. "You're awake?" Silly girl, you're not dead yet." Perhaps because she was surprised that she didn't die, after staring blankly for a while, 100 Flower Fairy suddenly rushed into Xiaochen's arms and hugged Xiaochen tightly with tears in her eyes. After surviving a great disaster, she could be together with Xiaochen again. This made 100 Flower Fairy so happy that she cried. Her tears wet Xiaochen's clothes. Gently patting 100 Flower Fairy's back, Xiaochen comforted her softly. Okay, the head of the 10 alluring beauties, 100 Flower Fairy, looking like this, wouldn't outsiders laugh their heads off if they saw it? Humph, I don't care." Hearing Xiaochen's words, 100 Flower Fairy cutely pouted and said, still unwilling to let go of Xiaochen, Please Please vote, please recommend. Chapter 242. 100-Flower Fairy had finally managed to enter Xiao Chen's heart after surviving the calamity and experiencing this incident. After being lovey-dovey in the room for a while, the two of them finally walked out of the room when one of Xiao Chen's followers arrived. She had already changed into a brand new red dress. After dressing up, Fairy of 100 Flowers was still as alluring as ever. She snuggled up to Xiao Chen and watched as the two of them walked out of the room side by side. The guest who had been waiting outside the door was stunned at first, but he soon spoke respectfully. King Jiao, King Blazing Jiao will be hosting a banquet at the 100 Immortals' house tonight. He has specially sent someone to invite you. The 10 great prodigies gathered in 5 Elements City once again, and there were still a few days before the opening of the 5 Elements Dao Palace. Thus, Sky-Scorching Prodigy King had invited the 10 great prodigies and their followers to a banquet at the 100 Immortals restaurant. Xiao Chen smiled faintly when he heard this. He agreed without much thought. Now that 100-Flower Fairy was fine, there was nothing wrong with attending Huangfu Ao's banquet. Seeing that Xiao Chen had nodded, the Heaven's Chosen Mercenary quickly replied to Huangfu Ao, saying that he would die together with Xiao Chen. After the battle last night, this small courtyard was obviously uninhabitable. The 5 Elements City had also arranged a new residence for Xiao Chen. Under the guidance of the Heaven's Chosen Mercenary, Xiao Chen arrived at the new courtyard. It was still small, but it was sufficient. Moreover, it was unknown if it was for safety reasons, but the 5 Elements City had actually dispatched a Dao Gate realm expert to guard the residences of the 10 great prides. After moving to the new residence, Xiao Chen's complexion had become much rosier after an afternoon of recuperation. Although he had yet to fully recover, he was already much better than before. As night fell, Xiao Chen brought his 12 followers and 100-Flower Fairy to the 100 Immortals' house. Due to Huangfu Ao's banquet tonight, the entire 100 Immortals' house had been reserved. Of course, the 10 great kings and the other geniuses were not the only ones participating. Some of the large clans around 5 Elements City were also participating. Furthermore, these large clans had expended quite a bit of effort in order to participate in this banquet. Being able to get acquainted with the 10 great pride kings and the other geniuses was obviously quite beneficial to these large clans. This was precisely the reason why many clans had brought their young ladies to this banquet. Their motive was self-evident. It would be best if their young ladies could get married to a genius or pride king. After leading the group into the 100 Immortals' house, the other 9 geniuses who had arrived earlier all stood up and smiled when Xiao Chen appeared. "Ha, brother Xiao Chen, you are late again. Last time at the Thousand Island Lake, you were the last to arrive. Today, you are the last to arrive again." The Heavenly Thunder Pride, Wang Wan, laughed loudly. "Can't you guys tell? Brother Xiao Chen has a fairy as his companion now, so he's naturally not like us." Huang Gu also joked. Xiao Chen, your ability to pick up girls is truly impressive. As long as the red flag at home doesn't fall, the red flag outside doesn't fall? Compared to the jokes of the others, Ouyang Roshua was a little unhappy. As a woman, Ouyang Roshua probably felt that Xiao Chen was a little too fickle. He already had a wife like Qin Shuru, and now there was another 100-Flower Fairy. Were these two women blind? Whether it was Qin Shuru or 100-Flower Fairy, any one of them was enough to make countless cultivators in the heavenly Chen continent go crazy. But now, both of them had fallen in love with Xiao Chen. Hearing 100-Flower Fairy's unhappy voice, everyone helplessly smiled bitterly. Among the 10 great kings, only Ouyang Roshua was a woman. Similarly, they helplessly smiled bitterly and didn't say anything. They brought 100-Flower Fairy to their seats and sat down. As for their guests, they also had their own seats. The entire 100 Immortals Tower had a total of 2 floors. The first floor was a gigantic hall that was filled with tables and chairs. Everyone was seated in a circle, drinking and chatting while the 10 supreme geniuses sat on a high platform on the second floor. From here, they could see the entire 100 Immortals Tower in their eyes, giving off a sense of superiority. Now that everyone had arrived, the banquet officially began. Members of the various great clans wandered among the crowd of sky prides, constantly trying to get closer to them. There were even some who openly tried to get married. The atmosphere was very lively, but no one dared to disturb the 10 great kings. Even if members of the various great clans wanted to get acquainted with the 10 great kings, they didn't dare to rashly approach them. After all, the 10 great kings were different from ordinary sky prides. The way they interacted with each other was completely different. For this banquet, the various great clans brought their most beautiful young ladies. At the same time, the beauties of the 100 Immortals Tower also appeared to support them. For a moment, it really felt like 100 flowers were competing to be the most beautiful. However, on this stage where hundreds of flowers were competing to be the most beautiful, there was one flower that stood out without a doubt. Although she sat quietly beside a young man in white from start to finish, many men couldn't help but secretly size her up. This beautiful flower was obviously 100 Flower Fairy. Compared to 100 Flower Fairy, the other girls present paled in comparison. Although 100 Flower Fairy only sat quietly beside Xiao Chen and poured wine for Xiao Chen with a smile on her face, this still couldn't stop the infatuated gazes of many men. Several disciples of large family clans sat together. They had come with their family elders. Of course, given their status, they were clearly not qualified to drink at the same table as so many prodigies, let alone the 10 great prodigies. In this banquet, these arrogant and domineering disciples of large family clans could only sit in a corner. However, they did not complain at all. Sitting together, everyone's gaze was fixed on 100 Flower Fairy, who was wearing a long red dress on the second floor. One of the disciples said with an infatuated expression, "If I can get a smile from 100 Flower Fairy, how good would that be? Even if I die, I'd be willing." Just a smile was enough to make this disciple willing to die. However, after hearing his words, someone beside him immediately laughed. "Save it. Who do you think the 100 Flower Fairy is? I've heard that she doesn't even care for the other kings of prides, and only the king of the demonic sword managed to win her heart. I'm afraid she won't even spare you a glance in this lifetime. Sigh, forget it. We can forget about a fairy like 100 Flower Fairy. Of course I know that. However, since I'm lucky enough to see 100 Flower Fairy today, I want to see what's going on." The disciples of the various great clans were already infatuated with 100 Flower Fairy. However, they were also very clear that they wouldn't have a chance with a fairy like 100 Flower Fairy. Only a king of pride like Xiao Chen was worthy of a fairy like 100 Flower Fairy. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 243. The 100 Flower Fairy attracted the attention of all the men, while Xiao Chen and the other 10 prided kings attracted the attention of countless women. Compared to the heaven's prides, the 10 prided kings attracted the attention of the young ladies. However, they also knew that with their status, how could they be worthy of the 10 prided kings? Back at the Thousand Island Lake, only the 10 amorous fairies were qualified to sit with the 10 prided kings. Not caring about the gazes of the crowd below, the prided kings sat on the high platform on the second floor, drinking and chatting. Of course, the topic of conversation basically revolved around the 5 Elements Tao Palace. Whether it was Xiao Chen or the other prided kings, they all knew about the 5 Elements Tao Palace. It was said that the 5 Elements Tao Palace was a miracle that was born when the heavenly Qin continent was formed. It was a small world that existed alone, and the heaven and earth within the 5 Elements Tao Palace was completely different from the heavenly Qin continent. The heaven and earth spiritual energy was more than 10 times that of the heavenly Qin continent. Moreover, there was a peerless treasure called Tao Intense Seed in the 5 Elements Tao Palace, and it was also the most precious thing in the 5 Elements Tao Palace. Martial artists could increase their comprehension of the martial Tao by devouring Tao thought seeds. In other words, as long as there were enough Tao thought seeds, martial artists would no longer have any barriers to their breakthroughs. It was a bit like enlightenment. However, devouring Tao thought seeds did not have any side effects. To put it bluntly, Tao thought seeds were the essence of the martial Tao being explained by the heavens and earth. Worshipping the heavens and earth as teacher, there naturally would not be any side effects. Of course, it wasn't a simple matter to obtain a Tao insight seed. All Tao insight seeds had the variations of the 5 elements, which were metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Only by gathering all 5 Tao insight seeds of different elements could one consume them. This was because the 5 elements reinforced and restrained each other, and none of them could be missing. Furthermore, the seeds of Tao will be hidden in the body of a monster called the spirit-reading ghost in the 5 Tao palaces. These spirit-reading ghosts were cunning by nature and were extremely difficult to kill. Only after killing the spirit-reading ghost could one obtain the seeds of Tao. Generally speaking, the goal of Xiaochen and the others on this trip to the 5 Elements Palace was to obtain the seeds of the Great Path. As long as there were enough seeds of the Great Path, coupled with the rich spiritual qi in the 5 Elements Palace, it was not impossible for them to directly break through to the next realm. Everyone, it's settled then. Once we enter the 5 Elemental Tao Palace, we will be competitors. At that time, there will be nothing wrong with snatching. Huangfu Ao raised his wine cup and said with a smile. The 10 great prides appreciated each other, but in the face of such a great opportunity like the 5 Elemental Tao Palace, none of them would give up. Within the 5 Elemental Tao Palace, it was normal for them to fight each other. After all, the Tao Intent seed belonged to whoever obtained it. Everyone smiled when they heard Huangfu Ao's words. Huanggu replied in a rough voice, of course. Compared to hunting down thought ghosts, I prefer to snatch them from your hands. Ha! Ancient Primordial, don't be so full of yourself. Do you know that you'll easily attract hatred like this? Don't go in and get robbed first. Feng Lingye said with a smile. Then let's see what happens in the 5 Elements Tao Palace. This time, it won't be like the Thousand Island Lake where time is up, Lin Nuo said with a smile. With that, everyone drained their cups. Xiaochen also had a faint smile on his face. At the same time, his eyes flashed with excitement. In the 5 Elements Tao Palace, the 10 great prides would definitely do their best for the Tao Intent seed. Just as Lin Nuo said, this time, it wouldn't be like the Thousand Island Lake where time was up. Noticing Xiaochen's smile, Flower Fairy also smiled. As a smart woman, she knew what Xiaochen was thinking. In the entire Heavenly Qin continent, the only thing that could arouse Xiaochen's interest was probably competing with the 10 great prides. The banquet lasted until late at night. When Xiaochen and Flower Fairy returned to their residence, it was already midnight. It's getting late. Rest early, Xiaochen said after sending Flower Fairy to her room. Hearing Xiaochen's words, Flower Fairy smiled sweetly and said with a gentle voice, "Are you not coming in?" With a sly look in her eyes, Fairy of 100 Flowers pushed the door open and entered the room. Looking at her back, Xiaochen felt a fire in his heart. She was indeed a seductive fairy. Every frown and smile of hers was enough to steal the soul of any man. Xiaochen strode into the room and closed the door. Since he had already accepted Fairy of 100 Flowers, there was no need for him to pretend anymore. If he liked her, then he liked her. There was no need for him to pretend to be aloof. Moreover, Xiaochen never thought of himself as a saint. With a beauty by his side, Xiaochen didn't want to act like Lu Xiaohui. That night, Xiaochen truly witnessed Flower Fairy's beauty. At the same time, Flower Fairy occupied an extremely important position in Xiaochen's heart. After the night passed, Xiaochen's life returned to normal for the next few days. He used 2 days to adjust his body to peak condition. Moreover, while waiting for the 5 Elements Tao Palace to open, Xiaochen didn't neglect his cultivation, especially the Tai Finger Sword and the 3 layers of overlapping waves. During this time, the 10 proud kings would naturally exchange pointers from time to time. Just like that, 5 Elements City returned to normal. 5 days later, the ruler of the 9 firmaments and the Tyrant Fist ruler arrived. The appearance of the 2 rulers meant that the 5 Elements Tao Palace was about to open. As expected, the 2 rulers announced that the 5 Elements Tao Palace would open at noon the next day. At that time, the 10 proud kings and all the geniuses would immediately enter. Finally, it was about to open. For a moment, Xiaochen and the others were filled with anticipation. The 5 Elements Dao Palace was a great opportunity for them. If they could grasp it well, they could even break through to the celestial realm in one go. Not only were the 10 proud kings and the geniuses looking forward to it, but the other people in 5 Elements City were also looking forward to it. Although they weren't qualified to enter the 5 Elements Dao Palace, that didn't stop them from looking forward to it, because it would be the first time the 10 proud kings would have an all-out battle. After a silent night, the next day, Xiaochen and his 12 guests prepared to leave. Looking at Flower Fairy in front of him, Xiaochen smiled and said, "Wait for me to come back." "Okay." Flower Fairy nodded when she heard Xiaochen. They arrived at the central main hall of the 5 Elements City according to the time. This was the entrance to the 5 Elements Palace. After Xiaochen arrived with his prodigy guests, the other prodigy kings also showed up with their own guests. They waited in the main palace for about 15 minutes. At noon, the ruler of the 9 firmaments and the tyrant fist ruler appeared. Facing the 2 rulers, everyone bowed and said, "Greetings, rulers. No need to be overly courteous. The 5 Elements Dao Palace is about to open. How much you can benefit from it will depend on yourselves." The tyrant fist ruler waved his hand casually. "Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me." Chapter 244. Said the ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds. The Dao Palace of the 5 Elements is extremely dangerous. So far, the Tianqian continent only knows how to open the Dao Palace of the 5 Elements, but we don't know much about it, especially Nian Gui. We know very little about him. The only thing we know for sure about the Nian Gui is that, first, the Nian Gui has spiritual intelligence, and it's not any weaker than humans. According to our speculations, the Nian Gui is a kind of life form, just like us humans. Second, the seeds of Dao are in the Nian Gui's body, but not every Nian Gui has a seed of Dao. Third, the Nian Gui is cruel and cunning. They like to eat people's hearts. Every time the Dao Palace of the 5 Elements opens, people die in the Dao Palace of the 5 Elements and are eaten by the Nian Gui. According to our speculations, human hearts are extremely beneficial to the Nian Gui, just like how we eat seeds of Dao. Therefore, every time the Dao Palace of the 5 Elements opens, it's not just the Tianqian continent's cultivators who kill the Nian Gui, it's also the Nian Gui who kill us humans. Lastly, entering the 5 Elemental Dao Palace is equivalent to entering a brand new world. This world has the suppression of the incomplete heavenly Dao, and warriors above the celestial realm are unable to enter. Moreover, during the teleportation process, you will be scattered and randomly appear in any location within the 5 Elemental Dao Palace. Therefore, after entering the 5 Elemental Dao Palace, I hope that you will find your companions as soon as possible. Before you start fighting amongst yourselves, I hope that you will ensure your own safety and not become food for the Nian Gui. Moreover, no matter what happens within the 5 Elemental Dao Palace, you can only rely on yourselves. Nobody can save you. According to the ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds, even though the Dao Palace of the 5 Elements was a great opportunity, it was also extremely dangerous. Besides, once they entered the Dao Palace of the 5 Elements, their life and death were up to the heavens. They could only rely on their own strength. The Tianqian continent couldn't protect them anymore. Because of that, the Dao Palace of the 5 Elements was much more dangerous. Even though all the people there were geniuses and if any of them died, it would be a great loss to the Tianqian continent. But on the path of cultivation, if they needed someone to protect them all the time, how could they become strong? Even if he grew up in the end, without experiencing the true tempering of life and death, he would only be a piece of trash, an embroidered pillow that only had looks. Therefore, even though it was fraught with danger, the sovereigns still allowed these geniuses to enter the 5 Elements Dao Palace. This was their opportunity and also their training. If they could pass this trial, they believed that everyone would experience a qualitative improvement. When the crowd heard the ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds, they were astonished, but apart from that, they also looked excited. As geniuses, they weren't afraid of challenges, especially Xiao Chen and the other kings of the continent of the Nine Clouds. The ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds had told them how dangerous the Five Elements Palace was. Because of that, the 10 kings of the continent of the Nine Clouds were even more excited. Seems like we have to change our plan. Let's observe the situation first. If Niangui is too strong, I'm afraid we'll have to work together, Guduya said as he looked at Xiao Chen and the rest. Initially, they had planned to compete against each other, but now it seemed like they had to observe the situation first. If Niangui was too strong, they couldn't fight against each other. Otherwise, they would be courting death. When Xiao Chen and the others heard Guduya, they nodded. They also understood that. Let's observe the situation first. The most important thing is to stay alive. If you lose your life, everything else is useless, said Huang Fueo. The plan had changed slightly. The ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds and the Tyrant Fist ruler smiled happily. The 10 kings of the continent of the Nine Clouds hadn't disappointed them. None of the rulers objected to a healthy competition between the 10 prides. However, they would be idiots if they continued to fight amongst themselves in the face of an external enemy. However, it was clear that the 10 prides would not do such a stupid thing. After learning of Niangui's strength and terror, they immediately changed their initial plans. Then it's settled. When we enter the Five Elements Dao Palace, we'll think of a way to gather together. No matter which geniuses we meet on the way, we'll protect them, said Ouyang Roshue. All right, everybody nodded. The 10 kings of the Nine Clouds changed their plan again. At the same time, the ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds and the Tyrant Fist ruler started making hand seals. A gigantic talisman appeared in the middle of the main palace. Blue lights dashed to the sky and turned into a pillar of light. When the pillar of light appeared, the ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds shouted loudly. The Five Elements Dao Palace will be open for 3 months. After 3 months, I will open the entrance again. At that time, the people who are still alive will be automatically sent out of the Dao Palace. All right, hurry up and enter, said the ruler of the Nine Clouds. He urged everybody to enter the Pillar of Light. Obviously, the entrance couldn't be open for a long time. The 10 kings of the Nine Clouds took the lead and entered the Pillar of Light. They quickly disappeared. After everybody entered the Pillar of Light, the ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds and the Tyrant Fist ruler stopped what they were doing. The Pillar of Light disappeared as if it had been a flash in the pan. While the Heavenly Qin Continent's prodigies were entering the Five Elemental Dao Palace through the entrance, in the incomplete world of the Five Elemental Dao Palace, there was no day or night. There was no sun or moon in the sky. At all times, the sky of the Five Elemental Dao Palace was gray, giving people a very oppressive feeling. In that oppressive world, there were hundreds of tribes, big and small. Those tribes were all made up of spirit-reading ghosts. As the ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds had said, spirit-reading ghosts were as intelligent as humans. Therefore, they had their own set of social rules. Each tribe had a leader who led the spirit-reading ghosts. At that moment, in a small tribe of spirit-reading ghosts, there was a huge wooden hut in the middle. A few ferocious-looking spirit-reading ghosts were seated together. The people from the outside world are going to come here again. This time, we have to steal more hearts. Don't worry, clan leader. We won't fail this time, one of the spirit-reading ghosts said after hearing those words. They also knew that the people from the Tianqian continent were going to enter the Dao Palace. Therefore, the spirit-reading ghosts had already made preparations to kill them. As soon as the spirit-reading ghost finished talking, a beam of light descended from the sky and a young man in white clothes appeared. The young man in white clothes was Xiao Chen, who had just entered the Dao Palace. The ruler of the continent of the Nine Clouds had said that when they were teleported, they would appear anywhere in the Dao Palace. Who would have thought that Xiao Chen would appear in the spirit-reading ghosts tribe? Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me. Chapter 245. Xiaochen had been teleported to the lair of the spirit-reading ghosts. Although he had never seen any spirit-reading ghosts before, he quickly reacted and cursed in his heart. What bad luck! Although he knew that he would be randomly teleported into the Five Elements Dao Palace, the randomness was too random. He had not done anything and he was already surrounded. Wasn't this like a lamb walking into a tiger's den? Xiaochen sized up the 7 or 8 spirit-reading ghosts. At the same time, the spirit-reading ghosts were also sizing up Xiaochen. The leader of the spirit-reading ghosts could not help but ask. A human from the heavenly Qin continent? Xiaochen and the resentful ghosts looked at each other. After a short moment of shock, the leader of the spirit-reading ghosts burst into laughter. "Ha, what you wish for comes true. This human has been teleported here." The leader of the spirit-reading ghosts knew that humans from the heavenly Qin continent would be randomly teleported into the Five Elements Dao Palace. However, he had never heard of being randomly teleported into a spirit-reading tribe. The leader of the spirit-reading ghosts was immediately overjoyed. He did not have to do anything and a human had fallen from the sky. This was simply sending him to his death. He laughed loudly. Then, the surrounding spirit-reading ghosts stood up and surrounded Xiaochen. They all looked at Xiaochen with unfriendly expressions. Their eyes were full of smiles. Being surrounded by the spirit-reading ghosts, Xiaochen sighed helplessly and muttered to himself, "What is this called? When one is unlucky, one's fart will hit one's heel. Forget it, forget it. Since this is the case, I will accept it." Xiaochen was helpless in the face of the situation. He had not done anything and he had already barged into the lair of the spirit-reading ghosts. Looking at the situation, it would be difficult for him to escape without a bloody battle. The storage ring on his hand flashed and the scarlet-edged sword appeared in his hand. Although he was unlucky, Xiaochen would not give up easily. Since that was the case, he could only fight his way out. Seeing that Xiaochen had taken out his weapon, the 7 or 8 spirit-reading ghosts sneered and a dense black aura spread out from their bodies. Unlike spiritual energy, the black aura that the spirit-reading ghosts emitted was filled with chilling intent. The black aura was something that they were born with. "Human, I can only say that you are unlucky. But don't worry, since you are so miserable, I will let you die a quick death." The leader of the spirit-reading ghosts sneered as he stared at Xiaochen. The 7 or 8 spirit-reading ghosts immediately rushed toward Xiaochen after hearing their leader's order. Xiaochen did not dare to be careless as it was his first time fighting against a spirit-reading ghost. He swung the crimson-edged sword in his hand and immediately engaged the 7 or 8 spirit-reading ghosts. The battle was intense. Following the terrifying shockwaves of the battle, the wooden house was soon shattered. At the same time, the battle attracted even more resentful ghosts. After the wooden house had completely collapsed, Xiaochen realized that he was in a tribe of spirit-reading ghosts. There were as many as 50 spirit-reading ghosts in the tribe. Being surrounded by 50 spirit-reading ghosts might seem like a large number, but it was only a tribe made up of 50 spirit-reading ghosts. Xiaochen's luck was not bad. A spirit-reading ghost tribe of this size could only be considered the weakest in the 5 elemental Dao Palace. Some of the larger spirit-reading ghost tribes even had thousands of spirit-reading ghosts. If Xiaochen had appeared in such a tribe, he would not have stood a chance. Human, there is actually a human. Ha, he must be an unlucky person who was teleported here. Xiaochen's appearance attracted the attention of all the spirit-reading ghosts in the tribe. They surrounded Xiaochen. Some spirit-reading ghosts burst into laughter. They all thought that Xiaochen was an unlucky person. Xiaochen calmed down when he heard those spirit-reading ghosts' mockery. At first, he didn't know how strong the spirit-reading ghosts were, but after interacting with them, Xiaochen realized that the strongest spirit-reading ghosts in this tribe was only at the earth mirror layer. Xiaochen was relieved. According to the ruler of the continent of the 9 clouds, the strongest spirit-reading ghosts in the 5 elemental Dao Palace could reach the peak of the celestial being layer. If he had been surrounded by 50 spirit-reading ghosts who had reached the peak of the celestial being layer, Xiaochen would have thought of a way to escape. However, the reality was that the spirit-reading ghosts surrounding him were only at the Earth mirror layer and the mysterious origin layer. They were too weak. They didn't have enough strength to surround him. He had thought that he was unlucky, but now it seemed that he had found a treasure. A faint smile appeared on his face as he swept his gaze across the group of spirit-reader ghosts. There were 50 of them, but he did not know if there were any seeds of Daoul in their bodies. Xiaochen was supposed to be the prey, but now, he had become the hunter. The spirit-reading ghosts didn't know that. They were still dreaming about capturing Xiaochen and obtaining his heart. Human, surrender. You can only blame yourself for being unlucky. You're going to die as soon as you come here. This little boy is scared out of his wits. He's really unlucky. He just entered the 5-elemental Dao Palace and he's already in a desperate situation. Human, surrender. Don't fight back. You won't be able to escape today. Xiaochen smiled when he heard the cries of the mind-reading ghosts. There was not the slightest hint of panic in his eyes. On the contrary, he put on an excited expression, as if he had just seen a treasure. Xiaochen chuckled as he scanned the group of spirit-reader ghosts. Who's the hunter and who's the hunted? The random teleportation sent me here. I have to say, you guys are really unlucky. I'm very lucky to have encountered so many spirit-reader ghosts right from the start. Looks like I'll have a lot to gain. Xiaochen had a 180-degree change in his mentality after understanding the overall strength of the spirit-reading ghost tribe. He thought that he was unlucky, but now, Xiaochen felt that he was really lucky to have appeared in such a weak spirit-reading ghost tribe. The spirit-reading ghost tribe was built in a valley. Looking at the surroundings, the valley should be very hidden. If he hadn't been sent here by coincidence, Xiaochen wouldn't have been able to find the spirit-reading ghost tribe. He could kill 50 spirit-reading ghosts effortlessly. Although he didn't know how many seeds of spirit-reading ghosts he could get, he thought that it would be a good harvest. Was Xiaochen lucky or unlucky to have such a great harvest right after entering the 5-elemental Dao Palace? The spirit-reading ghosts were enraged when they heard Xiaochen. The leader even shouted coldly, "Human, you're courting death. Kill him and dig out his heart." Begging to be collected, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 246. Xiaochen was surrounded by his own tribe's spirit-reader ghosts, but he was not afraid at all. Instead, he looked excited. It was as if Xiaochen saw his tribe's spirit-reader ghosts as prey. The leader of the spirit-reader ghosts shouted angrily. Upon hearing his command, the surrounding spirit-reader ghosts immediately attacked Xiaochen. The 7 or 8 spirit-reader ghosts took the lead. They were obviously the strongest in the tribe, second only to the leader. Their strength was comparable to human Earth mirror experts. Facing the attack of the spirit-reader ghosts, Xiaochen swung his Scarlet Heaven sword and executed the first level of the triple-layered waves, 100-layered waves. As an upper-grade Earth-level martial arts technique, the 3 layers of overlapping waves was extremely powerful. Even though it was only the first layer, the 100-layered waves, Xiaochen's sword was already imbued with immense power. Many of the spirit-reading ghosts felt as if they were witnessing a gigantic wave crashing toward them. 2 of the 7 or 8 spirit-reading ghosts were killed by Xiaochen with a single slash of his sword. The remaining 3 spirit-reading ghosts were also severely injured. In Xiaochen's opinion, the strength of the spirit-reader tribe was indeed too weak. There was not even a single spirit-reader ghost who was comparable to a celestial being in the entire tribe. It was a joke to think that a group of Earth Mirror and mysterious Aeon Realm spirit-reader ghosts could kill him. With one slash, Xiaochen killed 2 spirit-reader ghosts in an instant. Seeing this, the rest of the spirit-reader ghosts were shocked. The spirit-reader ghosts were cruel and cunning, but they were not stupid. Xiaochen's slash had undoubtedly demonstrated his powerful combat strength. Such combat strength made the spirit-reader ghosts' scalps tingle. Damn it. Even the leader of the spirit-reader ghosts cursed. He had underestimated Xiaochen. Without hesitation, the leader of the spirit-reader ghosts joined the battle. Without stopping, Xiaochen did not show any mercy to the spirit reader ghosts. In the eyes of humans, the spirit reader ghosts in the 5 elemental Dao Palace were opportunities. Only by killing them could one obtain the seeds of Dao will. Of course, the same applied to the spirit reader ghosts. In the eyes of the spirit reader ghosts, the humans of the heavenly Qin continent were also opportunities. By killing them and obtaining the hearts of humans, the spirit reader ghosts could obtain immeasurable benefits. After a chaotic battle, the scariest part of the spirit reader ghosts was their pair of sharp claws. Not only were they extremely hard, they were not weaker than earth weapons. They could easily cut open a person's stomach. Furthermore, the claws of the leader of the spirit reader ghosts were extremely corrosive. Once it came into contact with the claws, it would be like being burned by a raging fire. The skin and flesh would instantly turn into thick water. They could not simply come into contact with the claws of the spirit-reading ghosts. However, as long as they could avoid the claws of the spirit-reading ghosts, they would not be much of a threat. It was easier said than done. The speed of the spirit-reading ghosts was very fast. In Xiaochen's opinion, the speed of the leader of the spirit-reading ghosts was not any slower than that of a peerless genius. Xiaochen, on the other hand, was only a spirit-reading ghost that was equivalent to an earth mirror cultivator. It was hard to imagine how fast the spirit-reading ghosts, which were comparable to celestial realm cultivators, would be, and whether their claws would undergo any other changes. The spirit-reader ghosts were not to be underestimated. Even Xiaochen had to be careful when dealing with them. Fortunately, the strength of the spirit-reader ghosts was not strong, so it was not too difficult for Xiaochen to deal with them. One by one, the spirit-reader ghosts were killed by Xiaochen. The spirit-reader ghosts of the mysterious Ian realm could not do anything to Xiaochen. Basically, as long as they were targeted by Xiaochen, they would die without a doubt. The fierce battle at the beginning had turned into a one-sided massacre in the end. Xiaochen had single-handedly slaughtered the entire Spirit Reader tribe. The ferocious and cunning Spirit Reader ghosts were now screaming miserably under Xiaochen's sword. It was not that they had not dealt with humans from the heavenly Qin continent before. After all, humans from the heavenly Qin continent would come to the 5 elemental Dao Palace every few years. However, they had never seen a human as ferocious as Xiaochen. If the Spirit Reader ghosts were ferocious, then Xiaochen was tyrannical. He had killed the entire tribe of Spirit Reader ghosts with one sword. "Human, stop. Stop. I'll let you go. Stop." Seeing the Spirit Reader ghosts of his tribe being killed one by one, the leader of the Spirit Reader ghosts could no longer bear it. He had been injured in the previous battle. His left arm had been cut off by Xiaochen's sword. At this moment, he could not care less about his injury. He shouted at Xiaochen. He had thought that Xiaochen's appearance was like a pie falling from the sky. He thought that he could obtain a human heart without any effort. However, who would have thought that it was not a pie that fell from the sky, but a fiend? In less than an hour, his tribe had already lost more than half of its spirit beasts. If this continued, Xiaochen would completely annihilate their entire tribe. He was so frightened that he lost all will to fight. He chose to let Xiaochen go. He could not afford to offend such a malefic person. However, Xiaochen did not stop after hearing what the leader of the spirit-reading ghosts said. He killed another spirit-reading ghost with his sword and said calmly, "Let me go? I don't need your permission to leave. However, before I leave, I would like to harvest more Dao Force seeds." Now he was letting him go? What a joke! It was rare to encounter such an opportunity. How could Xiaochen not harvest more Dao Force seeds? Seeing that Xiaochen had no intention of leaving, the leader of the Spirit Reader ghosts panicked. Seeing his tribesmen fall one by one, the leader of the Spirit Reader ghosts felt dizzy. He kept muttering, "It's over. It's over. It's all over." A fiend had fallen from the sky. This was simply an unexpected disaster. Just as the leader of the Spirit Reader ghosts was feeling hopeless, a seemingly smart Spirit Reader ghost came to his side and said solemnly, "Leader, why don't we surrender? Surrender? Didn't you see that I have already surrendered? However, this malefic is clearly trying to kill us all. Upon hearing the words of the ghost-reading demon, the leader of the ghost-reading demon shouted coldly. Although they had already surrendered, Xiaochen had no intention of letting them go. Hearing this, the spirit reader ghost whispered into the leader's ear. Leader, have you forgotten? The last time a human entered, he taught us how to surrender. He said that if we meet a human from the heavenly Chen continent in the future, we only need to do this and we will definitely succeed. Hearing this, the leader of the spirit reader ghost's eyes lit up. With this reminder, he recalled that when the 5 elements Tao Palace opened, a human from the heavenly Chen continent broke into their tribe. After a fierce battle, the spirit reader ghosts could not do anything to the human. However, the human did not kill them all. He even taught the leader of the spirit reader ghosts a method. He said that if they met a human from the heavenly Chen continent in the future, as long as they did this, they would definitely bury the hatchet and the human would not attack them again. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 247. With his subordinate's reminder, Ghost Annihilation recalled the method that the human had taught him the last time he entered the 5 elemental Tao Palace. He had never used it before, so he didn't know if it would work. However, in the current situation, Ghost Annihilation clearly didn't have much time to hesitate. He gritted his teeth and immediately followed the human's instructions. The leader of the ghost chanters bent his knees and knelt on the ground. He took a deep breath and shouted in Xiaochen's direction, "Father, please spare my life. Father, spare my life?" Xiaochen, who was in the midst of a fierce battle with the Niangui, staggered when he heard the angry roar. He looked at the leader of the Niangui with a strange expression. What was going on? Why was his father asking for mercy in the middle of the fight? Could it be that these mind-reading ghosts were so smart? You can't win, so you kneel down and call me daddy? This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. When he saw that Xiaochen had indeed stopped after he called him father, he was overjoyed and immediately yelled at the surviving tribesmen. Kneel down, quickly kneel down. Under the orders of the leader of the spirit-reading ghosts, the remaining 10 or so spirit-reading ghosts knelt before Xiaochen. Then, under the lead of the spirit-reading ghosts, the spirit-reading ghosts shouted continuously. Father, spare me, spare me, spare me. Xiaochen was a little confused when he saw these ghost readers kneeling on the ground and calling him daddy. They had already called him daddy, so it was a little difficult for him to make a move. This was the first time Xiaochen had encountered such a situation. He stood rooted to the ground, dumbfounded. He was also rendered speechless by these mind readers. They were fighting to the death just a second ago, and the next second, they were all kneeling down and calling him daddy. This was just 2. Furthermore, what Xiaochen found most unacceptable was that these mind-reading ghosts seemed to be getting more and more fluent in calling out the word father in unison. Xiaochen didn't know that the ghost-reading ghosts didn't know what the word father meant. Unlike humans, the ghost-reading ghosts didn't have the concept of parents. They were only born because of the 5 elemental Tao Palace. Therefore, the ghost-reading ghosts didn't know the meaning of the word father at all. To them, calling out the word father was a sign of admitting defeat, and this was taught to them by a human. He wondered who taught these spirit-reading ghosts to kneel down and call him father when they couldn't defeat him. This person was definitely a genius. Their voices were uniform. Moreover, when they saw that Xiaochen really did not continue to attack, the spirit readers were overjoyed. They shouted even louder. Moreover, as they shouted for their father to spare their lives, they revealed expressions of joy and gratitude. Finally, the fiend had stopped. It seemed that the human didn't lie to them last time. Shouting "Father, spare my life" was really useful. They screamed for their father to spare their lives, but in the end, it was Xiaochen who told them to shut up. Only then did they stop. Xiaochen walked over to the leader of the spirit-reading ghosts speechlessly. Seeing that Xiaochen had walked over, the leader of the spirit-reading ghosts was shocked. He instinctively knelt down and shouted, "Father, please spare my life, shut up. Xiaochen immediately shouted when he saw that the leader of the spirit-reading ghosts was about to shout again. Xiao Chen's battle intent slowly subsided after being interrupted by the spirit-reading ghosts. He felt a little helpless. After some questioning, Xiaochen found out that the phrase "Father to spare their lives" was taught to them by a human from the heavenly Qin continent. He said that if they met a human that they couldn't defeat, as long as they shouted the word "Father," they would be able to turn the situation around. Xiaochen didn't expect that this was taught to the spirit-reading ghosts by a human. Hearing this, the corner of his mouth twitched. What a genius! This guy was definitely a genius. In the end, Xiaochen didn't go on a killing spree. After some discussion, the leader of the spirit-reading ghosts chose to surrender and was willing to follow Xiaochen everywhere. Thinking about it, it would be a good choice to have a group of loyal spirit-reading ghosts as his subordinates in the Five Dao Palace. After all, they would definitely know more about the Five Dao Palace. Moreover, he could send them out to look for other people. This would save Xiaochen a lot of trouble. After accepting the leader of the spirit-reading ghosts' surrender, Xiaochen did an inventory. He had killed a total of 43 spirit-reading ghosts. However, he only obtained 5 Dao Thought Seeds. Fortunately, Xiaochen obtained 5 Dao Thought Seeds of the 5 elements. There was 1 seed of each element: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. They were thumb-sized and looked like seeds. However, they emitted a faint white light. 43 spirit-reading ghosts, but only 5 Dao Thought Seeds. This probability was too low. Moreover, these 5 Dao Thought Seeds all came from the spirit-reading ghosts that were comparable to the Earth Mirror. In other words, it was impossible for a thought ghost below the Earth Mirror to possess a seed of Dao Will. Only after reaching the Earth Mirror would a thought ghost's body contain a seed of Dao Will. As for a thought ghost at the celestial realm, the probability was higher. Sigh, it seems that I don't have to consider the spirit-reading ghosts below the Earth Mirror anymore. I can only obtain Dao Thought Seeds by killing the spirit-reading ghosts above the Earth Mirror. Xiaochen sighed helplessly and murmured softly. Just as Xiaochen put away the 5 Dao Thought Seeds, the leader of the spirit-reading ghosts stepped forward respectfully and said, "Father, the room is ready." Since he had subdued the spirit-reading ghost tribe, Xiaochen planned to use it as a base to slowly search for the prodigies who had entered the 5 elemental Dao Palace with him. However, when he heard the leader of the spirit-reading ghosts call him father, Xiaochen said unhappily, "You're not allowed to call me father in the future. Do you understand?" It was unknown if these spirit-reading ghosts had a screw loose. After seeing that their father had spared their lives, they stubbornly believed that the word father was magical. As long as they met a human from the heavenly Qin continent, no matter what the situation was, they could resolve it with just the word father. Therefore, even though Xiaochen had already let them off, they still insisted on calling Xiaochen father. "Yes, father," the leader of the spirit-reading ghosts replied respectfully when he heard Xiaochen shout. He was completely speechless. No matter what he said, these guys had no intention of changing their words. Helpless, Xiaochen walked directly to the wooden house that had been arranged for him. This wooden house originally belonged to the leader of the spirit-reading ghosts, but now it had become Xiaochen's residence. Xiaochen wanted to test the effects of the Dao Thought Seeds. He walked quickly to the room with anticipation. However, wherever he passed, the spirit-reading ghosts would stop what they were doing and respectfully call out to Xiaochen when they saw him. "Father." Under the respectful greetings, Xiaochen walked into the wooden house with a speechless expression. Once he closed the door, it was finally quiet. He sat down cross-legged and took out the 5 Dao Thought Seeds. He smiled and said, "Let me see if these Dao Thought Seeds are really that magical." He couldn't wait to test the effects of the Dao Thought Seeds. With that, Xiaochen swallowed the 5 Dao Thought Seeds. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 248. He swallowed the seed of the way in one gulp. At first, he did not feel anything, but soon, he found that his body was completely unable to move. At the same time, his soul seemed to have left his body and began to wander in the endless starry sky. Xiaochen could not control his body, and at the same time, his soul had left his body. Of course, this feeling was very comfortable, and one would not want to resist it. It was as if he was on a spiritual journey, wandering in the endless starry sky. While he was wandering in the starry sky, it was as if there was a voice constantly teaching him in his ears, explaining to him all kinds of martial arts cultivation. It was a very wonderful feeling. There was obviously no one around, but he could really feel that there was a teacher teaching him. In this state, Xiaochen's comprehension of martial arts was constantly increasing. This was the so-called imparting of the heavenly way. It was true that one could obtain the imparting of the heavenly way by swallowing the seed. It was as if a lonely boat was drifting in the endless starry sky. His soul seemed to be wrapped in the vast knowledge of martial arts. In such an environment, it was difficult not to improve. He did not know how much time had passed. Anyway, Xiaochen felt that it had been at least a month. However, when Xiaochen came back to his senses, the seed that Xiaochen had swallowed had been completely refined and absorbed. He slowly opened his eyes. In reality, only 2 hours had passed. Xiaochen felt that he had spent at least a month on the mental journey to the Great Void. However, the truth was that only 2 hours had passed since Xiaochen had swallowed the seed of will. It was simply too magical. This seed was simply too magical. If it were not for the fact that this seed could not be brought out of the Five Elements Tao Palace, there would be many people in the Tianqian continent who could rely on this seed to break through the shackles of many years. Taking a deep breath, Xiaochen was very satisfied with the effect of the seed. However, there was one thing that he was worried about. When absorbing and refining the seed, he was completely defenseless. If he encountered any danger during this period, he would not be able to fight back. Therefore, in order to refine the seed, he needed a trustworthy person to protect him. Otherwise, it would be too dangerous. After all, this was the Five Elements Tao Palace, the world of the mind-reading ghosts. In such an environment, it was obvious that he could not put himself in such a dangerous situation. After refining these 5 seeds, Xiaochen also realized that he could not be too casual when refining the seed in the future. He must have a trustworthy person to protect him. The situation just now was actually very dangerous. If the mind-reading ghosts had any evil intentions, Xiaochen could only be slaughtered. Fortunately, it was a daunting experience without danger. There were no more seeds on him, not a single one. Immediately, Xiaochen began to try to cultivate. The spiritual energy in the Five Elements Tao Palace was known to be more than 10 times that of the Tianqian continent. This was something that Xiaochen felt when he first entered the Five Elements Tao Palace. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth in this world was indeed extremely rich. It was not any weaker than the cultivation treasures of the Tianqian continent. When he tried to cultivate, it was as if his body had turned into a black hole, crazily devouring the spiritual energy of heaven and earth around him. In just half an hour, Xiaochen felt that his cultivation had improved a lot. At least, it was comparable to 3 days of cultivation in the Tianqian continent. Half an hour was comparable to 3 days in the Tianqian continent. What kind of concept was this? He was very satisfied. Then, Xiaochen called for the mind-reading ghost leader. Upon receiving Xiaochen's call, the mind-reading ghost leader quickly rushed over. As soon as he entered, he knelt down before Xiaochen and shouted loudly, "Father." Hearing this, the corner of Xiaochen's mouth unconsciously twitched. To be called father by an ugly mind-reading ghost, how could he describe this feeling? It was just uncomfortable. Duo Fu, do you know the situation in this area? Knowing that the mind-reading ghost leader's name was Duo Fu, Xiaochen asked him about the situation in this area. Facing Xiaochen's question, Duo Fu did not hide anything. According to him, this area was actually at the edge of the Five Elements Tao Palace. There were 28 mind-reading ghost tribes, but the ruler was a tribe called the Night Eclipse tribe. The Nocturnal Eclipse tribe was the strongest ghost reader tribe in this area. It was said that there were hundreds of celestial realm ghost readers in the Nocturnal Eclipse tribe. there were thousands of ghost readers in the entire tribe. Furthermore, the leader of the Nocturnal Eclipse tribe had 1 foot in the Ghost King realm. This was the first time Xiaochen had heard of a Ghost King. With Duo Fu's explanation, Xiaochen quickly understood that the Ghost King was a mind-reading ghost that had surpassed the Heaven realm. It was equivalent to a human Dao Querying Realm warrior, so it was called a Ghost King. In the 5 Elements Dao Palace, the Ghost King was the strongest resentful ghost. In the entire 5 Elements Dao Palace, the number of Ghost Kings would not exceed the number of fingers on one hand. Below the Ghost Kings were the half-step Ghost Kings like the leader of the Night Eclipse tribe. After roughly understanding the situation in this area, Xiaochen pondered for a moment and decided to look for the Heavenly Qin Continent's prodigies first. Then, Xiaochen ordered Duo Fu to send people out to search for humans. After hearing Xiaochen's order, Duo Fu respectfully complied and left the wooden house. After Duo Fu left, Xiaochen began to ponder. There were 28 mind-reading ghost tribes in this area, and Duo Fu's tribe was the weakest among the 28 tribes. However, there were a few tribes that were similar in strength to the Duo Fu tribe, and none of them had a Heaven Realm mind-reading ghost. For the time being, Xiaochen did not plan to provoke the Night Eclipse tribe. After all, there was a half-step Ghost King there, and it would be dangerous for him to go alone. Since that was the case, he might as well start with the weaker tribes. The task of searching for humans was handed over to Duo Fu and the rest. Xiaochen prepared to continue hunting mind-reading ghosts. After all, he had too few Dao thought seeds. From Duo Fu, Xiaochen found out that the nearest mind-reading ghost tribe was only slightly stronger than the Duo Fu tribe. There were 15 Earth Realm mind-reading ghosts in the tribe, and the rest were below the Earth Realm mind-reading ghost. The entire tribe only had about 100 mind-reading ghosts. Such strength was naturally not a problem for Xiaochen. However, there were only 15 Earth Realm mind-reading ghosts, which left Xiaochen speechless. After all, Dao thought seeds could only be found in mind-reading ghosts that were above the Earth Realm mind-reading ghost. He was a little disappointed, but there was nothing he could do. After all, he could only take one step at a time. On the same day, Xiaochen left the Duo Fu tribe and began his hunting journey in the 5 Elements Palace. Chapter 249. According to Duo Fu, the tribe was called the Sangping tribe. The leader of the tribe was called Sangping. He was slightly stronger than Duo Fu, but not by much. Xiaochen only took a little more than 2 hours to reach the Sangping tribe from the Duo Fu tribe. The distance between the two tribes wasn't too far. In other words, the 5 Elemental Taoist Palace wasn't that big. It wasn't even as big as the Dongyang region. The Sangping tribe was located in a dense forest. It was surrounded by towering ancient trees. Furthermore, the trees in the 5 Elemental Taoist Palace were different from those in the Tianqian continent. The trunks were as hard as black iron and the leaves were as sharp as blades. As a result, the ancient trees became a natural barrier for the Sangping tribe. The intelligence of the thought ghosts wasn't weak. They were very particular about the location of the tribe. The Duo Fu tribe was built in a hidden valley while the Sangping tribe was built in a dense forest with the ancient trees as a natural barrier. After secretly observing the Sangping tribe for a while, Xiaochen decided to take action after confirming that the strength of the Sangping tribe was as Duo Fu had described. With his strength, there was no need for a sneak attack. Therefore, Xiaochen swaggered into the Sangping tribe. As soon as he arrived outside the Sangping tribe, the thought ghosts of the Sangping tribe noticed Xiaochen. They were stunned at first, but they soon sneered. "Ha, human, we're really lucky today. We actually met a human who walked right into our trap." Similar to the reaction of the Duo Fu tribe, the thought ghosts of the Sangping tribe were extremely excited when they saw Xiaochen. Soon, the thought ghosts of the Sangping tribe surrounded Xiaochen, led by their leader, Sangping. There were close to 100 thought ghosts. 15 of them were comparable to the Earth Mirror level. Xiaochen didn't waste any time. The storage ring on his hand flashed and the scarlet-edged sword appeared in his hand. He slashed out with the 100-layered waves and killed an Earth mirror-level thought ghost in front of him. It was a one-hit kill. However, Xiaochen shook his head in disappointment. This spirit-reading ghost actually didn't have a Dao intense seed in its body. This wasn't a good start. Sang Ping's face darkened when he saw that Xiaochen had killed a spirit-reading ghost that was comparable to an Earth mirror in a single strike. He shouted coldly, "This brat is strong. Let's kill him together." The fat leader, Sang Ping, could tell at a glance that Xiaochen was strong and did not dare to be careless. He immediately ordered the spirit-reading ghosts to surround and kill Xiaochen. At the same time, he took the lead and attacked Xiaochen. In the face of the Sang Ping's spirit-reading ghosts, the long sword in Xiaochen's hand let out a sword hum. Then, the entire battlefield was instantly enveloped by sword chi. Sword light filled the sky and the spirit-reading ghost screams could be heard. Since Xiaochen dared to come alone, he naturally had complete confidence. Moreover, Xiaochen's target was very clear. He only targeted the 15 spirit-reading ghosts of the Earth mirror level. This was because the spirit-reading ghosts below the Earth mirror level couldn't possibly have a Dao intense seed in their bodies. Therefore, it didn't matter to Xiaochen whether he killed them or not. Xiaochen's target had been the 15 spirit-reading ghosts at Earth mirror level since the beginning of the battle. In less than a quarter of an hour, 3 spirit-reading ghosts had already died under Xiaochen's sword. Sadly, the 3 spirit-reading ghosts did not even leave a single seed. It seemed that the seeds of the will of Xiaochen really depended on his face. Feeling frustrated, Xiaochen's attacks became more and more ruthless. There were 15 spirit-reading ghosts at the Earth mirror level today. It was impossible that he would not get a single seed of the will of Xiaochen. Damn it, how is this human so strong? Sang Ping couldn't help but curse as he watched Xiaochen slaughtering the spirit-reading ghosts one after another. Xiaochen ignored Sang Ping's curses and continued his attacks. Finally, after killing the 5th spirit-reading ghost, Xiaochen obtained his first Dao intense seed. It was an Earth attribute Dao intense seed. Without hesitation, Xiaochen reached out and grabbed the Dao intense seed into his ring. As though he was extremely lucky, Xiaochen obtained Dao intense seeds from the 6th, 7th, and 8th spirit-reading ghosts. However, it was a pity that all 4 Dao intense seeds were of the Earth attribute and couldn't be refined. The massacre continued. After Xiaochen killed 12 spirit-reading ghosts of the Earth mirror level and dozens of spirit-reading ghosts of the mysterious Yin level, Sang Ping was completely dumbfounded. How could this human be so strong? He was on a completely different level compared to those humans from before. A human with a single sword could actually annihilate an entire spirit-reading tribe. This was something that rarely happened before. Without giving Sang Ping a chance, Xiaochen killed him with his dragon spring sword finger. At this point, all 15 spirit-reading ghosts of the Earth mirror level were dead and Xiaochen obtained 8 Dao intense seeds. However, it was a pity that unlike the previous time, the 8 Dao intense seeds that Xiaochen obtained weren't of the 5 elements. 5 of them were of the Earth attribute, 2 of them were of the Water attribute, and 1 of them was of the Metal attribute. As a result, even though Xiaochen possessed 8 Dao intense seeds, he couldn't refine them. Xiaochen didn't attack because he had already killed all the spirit-reading ghosts of the Sang Ping tribe. The remaining spirit-reading ghosts of the mysterious Yin level were of no use to him. Similarly, seeing that Xiaochen didn't attack, the remaining spirit-reading ghosts of the mysterious Yin level began to retreat unconsciously. They looked at Xiaochen with eyes full of fear. This human was simply a devil. In less than 2 hours, he had slaughtered the Sang Ping tribe's leader and the experts of the Sang Ping tribe. With such strength, the surviving spirit-reading ghosts couldn't muster any fighting spirit. They thought that Xiaochen was going to kill them all and kept retreating. In the end, one of the spirit-reading ghosts suddenly knelt on the ground and shouted, "Father, please spare me." This cry of "Father, please spare me" sounded so familiar to Xiaochen. He looked at the kneeling spirit-reading ghost with a strange expression. Did the spirit-reading ghosts of the Sang Ping tribe also know this move? The familiar scene appeared again. The spirit-reading ghosts knelt in front of Xiao Chen and shouted for mercy. Xiao Chen was speechless. He really didn't know who taught these spirit-reading ghosts this phrase. He didn't attack again. After all, it didn't matter if he killed these spirit-reading ghosts of the mysterious Ian level. They couldn't possibly have Dowel seeds in their bodies. He walked away and watched Xiao Chen's back as he gradually disappeared into the forest. Only then did the surviving spirit-reading ghosts heave a sigh of relief. This human was really too terrifying. However, Father, please spare me was indeed useful. Didn't Xiao Chen stop attacking after he shouted? For a moment, the spirit-reading ghosts of the Sangping tribe believed in their father's words of Father, please spare me. They were determined to kneel and beg for mercy if they met any powerful human in the future. Chapter 250. After killing all the Earth Mirror-reading ghosts, Xiao Chen left in satisfaction. Not long after Xiao Chen left, another human arrived outside the Sangping tribe. This person was dressed in black and was the peerless genius of the Mu clan, Mu Feng. Mu Feng was also sent to this area, but his luck was obviously better than Xiao Chen's. He was not sent directly to the nest of the reading ghosts. After exploring the forest for an entire day, Mu Feng finally arrived at the outskirts of the Sangping tribe. He had never come into contact with a ghost-reading tribe before. When Mu Feng realized that he had unintentionally entered a ghost-reading tribe, his face immediately darkened. Mu Feng was not the king of geniuses. He was merely a peerless genius. Although his combat strength was extraordinary and could be said to be invincible among those of the same cultivation level, he would not be able to do so as easily as Xiao Chen if he was surrounded by the Nian ghosts. In fact, if the Sangping tribe was at its peak, it was entirely possible for them to surround and kill Mu Feng. After all, only the king of geniuses could easily defeat 15 Earth Mirror-level Nian ghosts. He wanted to retreat, but he was too late. More than 20 reading ghosts had already rushed out. Mu Feng's heart sank when he saw the appearance of these reading ghosts. However, just like Mu Feng, it had been less than an hour since Xiao Chen left. The reading ghosts of the Sangping tribe also felt their scalps go numb when they saw another human. If Mu Feng had appeared before Xiao Chen, the reading ghosts of the Sangping tribe would not have hesitated to kill him. Fortunately, Mu Feng only appeared after Xiao Chen left. The Sangping tribe could be said to have been completely destroyed by Xiao Chen. They did not have the slightest intention to fight against the human. Mu Feng did not know what had happened in the Sangping tribe. Faced with these 20 mind-reading ghosts, he was stunned at the beginning. Then, he steeled his heart and immediately took out his earth weapon, shouting loudly, "Come on, you bunch of bastards. Today, I will fight it out with you." As a peerless genius, Mu Feng was obviously not that weak. Even though he had unintentionally barged into the lair of Nian Gui, Mu Feng had no intention of giving up. Since he was going to die anyway, he naturally had to give it his all. Mu Feng was prepared for a bloody battle. But what he didn't expect was that after he let out a bellow, more than 20 spirit-reading ghosts knelt on the ground and shouted, "Father, please spare us, what was going on?" Kneeling down and calling him daddy before the fight even started? Mu Feng was stunned by the actions of the spirit-reading ghosts. He had never come into contact with the spirit-reading ghosts before, so he was completely dumbfounded. He thought that this was a ploy by the spirit-reading ghosts to lower his guard and then take the opportunity to launch a sneak attack. After all, everyone knew that the spirit-reading ghosts were cunning and cruel by nature. Mu Feng concluded that these mind-reading ghosts were doing this on purpose to numb him. He glared at them and shouted coldly, "This kind of scheme is despicable. Not to mention calling me father, even if you call me grandfather, I won't fall for it. Die." As soon as he finished speaking, Mu Feng no longer hesitated. He made the first move and attacked the group of mind-reading ghosts. With Mu Feng's strength, facing a group of spirit-reading ghosts who were only at the Mystic Ian realm was naturally not a big problem. After a bloody battle, Mu Feng slaughtered the spirit-reading ghosts one by one. These spirit-reading ghosts in the Sangping tribe probably couldn't figure out until they died. Their father's mercy worked well against Xiaochen, so why didn't it work against Mufeng? After completely slaughtering the spirit-reading ghosts in the Sangping tribe, Mufeng didn't get any Daoul seeds. He had no choice. The spirit-reading ghosts he killed were all at the Mystic Ian realm, so it was impossible for them to have Daoul seeds. Feeling a little disappointed, Mufeng then searched the Sangping tribe again. In the end, he didn't find anything and had to leave helplessly. Xiaochen had no idea that Mufeng was so close to him. For the next few days, he spent the rest of his time hunting the mind ghosts, except for spending 2 hours each day cultivating. Over the past 2 days, Xiaochen had wiped out another 2 tribes of weaker chanting ghosts. Like before, he only killed the chanting ghosts who were at the level of Earth Mirror. Similarly, after being scared out of their wits by Xiaochen, these chanting ghosts would kneel and beg for mercy. Xiaochen was already used to these spirit-reading ghosts' actions. In his opinion, when the 5 Elements Taoist Palace opened last time, there must have been a lunatic in the heavenly Qin continent who spread the word that as long as they met humans, they would be able to resolve their grudges by begging for mercy. However, these spirit-reading ghosts believed it. After wiping out 2 ghost-reading tribes in a row, Xiaochen now had 18 Daoul seeds in his possession. At the same time, Xiaochen had also successfully collected the second set of Daoul seeds of the 5 elements. Of course, most of them had the same attributes. It had only been 3 days since he entered the 5 Elements Taoist Palace, but his harvest was pretty good. The only thing that made Xiaochen feel a little helpless was that it had been 3 days, but he still hadn't found a single human supreme talent. He didn't even know where they had been transported to. Feeling a little anxious, Xiaochen repeatedly urged Duo Fu to increase the effort of searching for humans. Just as Xiaochen was anxiously searching for humans, Mufeng, who wasn't far from Xiaochen, had passed by 2 other spirit-reading tribes. Coincidentally, these 2 spirit-reading tribes had been massacred by Xiaochen. When Mufeng appeared, the spirit-reading tribes of these 2 tribes didn't have any intention of resisting. They immediately knelt down and begged for mercy. Starting from the Sangping tribe, Mufeng had encountered 3 spirit-reading tribes. However, when these spirit-reading tribes saw him, they didn't hesitate to beg for mercy. This made Mufeng very surprised. However, although he was surprised, Mufeng didn't show any mercy. He shouted coldly, "Mercy, father? Humph, even if you call me grandfather today, you will still die." Mufeng didn't stop because of the words father. He was like Xiaochen's tail. After Xiaochen ransacked these 3 spirit-reading tribes, Mufeng appeared again and killed them all. However, Mufeng didn't get a single Dao Force seed after ransacking these 3 spirit-reading tribes. This was because all the Dao Force seeds had been taken away by Xiaochen. After massacring these 3 spirit-reading tribes, the spirit-reading ghosts of the Duo Fu tribe finally found Mufeng. However, they didn't appear directly because they saw with their own eyes that Mufeng didn't seem to care about their father's mercy. Even if they begged for mercy, they would still be killed by him. Father's mercy doesn't work on this human? One of the spirit-reading ghosts of the Duo Fu tribe asked doubtfully. "I think I heard this human call you grandfather. Could it be that he doesn't want father to spare his life, but rather grandfather to spare his life?" Fearing that they would be killed by Mufeng, the 2 spirit-reading ghosts of the Duofu tribe did not show themselves directly. After some discussion, they decided that one of them would follow Mufeng while the other would send the news back to the tribe and let the chief make the decision. Chapter 251. Mufeng's confidence was boosted after wiping out 3 ghost-reading tribes in a row. He sneered as he continued on his journey. "These ghost-reading ghosts aren't as scary as my cousin described. Every time we meet, they would kneel down and beg for mercy. They only know how to resort to such despicable means. They are completely fearless." The cousin that Mufeng was referring to was naturally Bloodwood prodigy King Mui. After wiping out 3 ghost-reading tribes in a row, Mufeng's fear of the ghost-reading ghosts had lessened significantly. In Mufeng's opinion, these ghost-reading ghosts who only knew how to kneel down and beg for mercy were nothing more than ants. It had to be said that some things in this world were just so coincidental. Mufeng had been in the Five Elements Palace for a few days, and the psyche ghosts he had encountered were all psyche ghosts that had been scared out of their wits by Xiaochen. These psyche ghosts had lost their will to fight against humans, which was why they would cry for mercy. If Mufeng had encountered a psyche ghost from another tribe, he probably wouldn't have cried for mercy. It was a pity that Mufeng had completely believed that the psyche ghosts were like that, and would only cry for mercy when they met to numb him. Mufeng felt emboldened and felt that he should be able to do whatever he wanted in the Five Elemental Dao Palace. The only pity was that he didn't obtain a single Dao Force seed after killing nearly 100 mind-reading ghosts. His luck was really bad. He thought that he was too unlucky to not get a Dao seed. However, Mufeng didn't know that the reason why he didn't get a Dao seed had nothing to do with luck. It was because the ghost-reading tribes that he had encountered had all been killed by Xiaochen. As such, it was naturally impossible for him to get a Dao seed. Mufeng walked through the forest with his head held high. The current Mufeng obviously wouldn't back down when he encountered a ghost-reading tribe. This was because the ghost-reading tribe didn't pose any threat to him at all. At the same time, in the Duofu tribe, Duofu received a report that they had found a human. However, this human was a little strange. He didn't like to be a father, but liked to be a grandfather. Therefore, Duofu's subordinates didn't dare to approach him rashly, for fear of being killed by this human. The human that Duofu's subordinates were talking about was obviously Mufeng. Even now, there was still a spirit reader from the Duofu tribe following Mufeng in secret. When Duofu received this news, he immediately reported it to Xiaochen. After hearing Duofu's report, Xiaochen said with a strange expression, "What? You like being a grandfather?" Xiaochen didn't know that this person was Mufeng, but when he heard Duofu say that this was a person who liked being a grandfather, Xiaochen was secretly amused. A person who liked being a grandfather. However, being able to find a human prodigy was indeed a good thing. Immediately, Xiaochen asked Duofu to send someone to confirm Mufeng's current location, and then he would go personally. Xiaochen was naturally concerned that he had finally found someone from the heavenly Qin continent. After hearing Xiaochen's words, Duofu also immediately sent someone to confirm Mufeng's current location. Just as Xiaochen was preparing to go to Mufeng's aid, Mufeng, on the other hand, had arrived at a small plain after half a day's journey. Seeing that Mufeng had actually entered the plain, the ghost-reading tribe that had been secretly following Mufeng had a drastic change of expression. It stood outside the plain and hesitated for a while, but ultimately, it didn't dare to take a single step into the plain. This was because the plain was where the Night Eclipse tribe was located. As the most powerful ghost-reading tribe in this area, the Night Eclipse tribe's strength was terrifying. Not only was their leader a ghost king half step away, but there were also hundreds of ghost-reading tribes in the celestial realm. Not daring to continue following him, the ghost-reading tribe finally turned back to the tribe. It was prepared to inform Xiaochen of this matter and let Xiaochen make the decision himself. Unaware that he had entered the Night Eclipse tribe's territory, Mufeng was still secretly anticipating whether the next ghost-reading tribe he encountered would have a Dao thought seed. God bless me. The next time I meet a ghost-reading tribe, I must have a Dao thought seed. Just as he was praying in his heart, Mufeng saw a large ghost-reading tribe from afar. It looked like a simple city with wooden fences protecting it. Inside, densely packed wooden houses were scattered all over the place. This was the Night Eclipse tribe. Its scale was many times larger than the other ghost-reading tribes. However, Mufeng was not nervous at all in the face of such a terrifying ghost-reading tribe. A smile appeared on his face as he shouted, "Ghost-reading tribe, your Grandpa Mu is here." It was as if he had seen a piece of juicy meat. Thinking that it was another group of ferocious-looking ghost-reading tribe, they knelt before him and begged for mercy. Then, they started a massacre. Mufeng rushed towards the Night Eclipse tribe excitedly. At the same time, dozens of ghost-reading tribe guards outside the Night Eclipse tribe also saw a human rushing towards them excitedly. For a moment, these ghost-reading tribe guards were confused by Mufeng. What was going on? Was this human crazy? He was alone. Not only did he not run when he saw the ghost reading tribe, he even rushed over excitedly. "Leader, this human is a little abnormal." An earth mirror reading ghost looked at the tall ghost reading tribe leader and said. Calling this spirit reader ghost captain was indeed true. This spirit reader ghost was very different from the other spirit reader ghosts in terms of appearance. First of all, his body was much bigger. He was almost 3 meters tall. The muscles on his body were also very strong. Especially his pair of sharp claws, which had started to turn from green to black. Just by looking at his appearance, one could tell that this ghost reading tribe was very strong. This ghost reading tribe of the celestial realm had terrifying strength. It was not an exaggeration to say that if a celestial realm human and a ghost reading tribe of the celestial realm were to fight, the human would have no chance of winning. Of course, this was excluding the Skyprides and King of Prides. However, even Skyprides could only guarantee that they would not be defeated in the same realm. If they wanted to defeat a ghost reading tribe of the celestial realm, perhaps only the 10 King of Prides could do it. In the Night Eclipse tribe, the ghost reading tribe leaders were all in the celestial realm. Hearing his subordinate's words, the leader looked at Mufeng, who was running towards him with a puzzled look. Under the watchful eyes of this group of ghost reading tribe members, Mufeng quickly arrived outside the Night Eclipse tribe. He looked at this group of ghost reading tribe members excitedly. He did not notice that the expressions of these ghost reading tribe members were different from the ghost reading tribe members from the other 3 tribes. Mufeng shouted loudly. "Your grandpapa is here. Hurry up and kneel down and beg your father for mercy." Chapter 252. Your grandpapa is here. "Bastards, kneel down and beg for your father's mercy," he shouted excitedly as he rushed over. Upon hearing Mufeng's words, a cold glint flashed across the eyes of the celestial realm bastard. Is this human courting death? Not only did he barge into the Night Eater tribe alone, he even dared to ask them to kneel down and beg for their father's mercy. It was obvious that the Night Eater tribe did not know about the story of their father's mercy. The human who taught the other tribes about their father's mercy had also never been to the Night Eater tribe. This was normal. The Nocturnal Eclipse tribe's strength was obvious. The small ghost-chanting tribe might not be able to do anything to the human who entered the 5 Elements Tao Palace, but the Nocturnal Eclipse tribe could easily crush him. Therefore, the human was smart enough not to come to the Nocturnal Eclipse tribe and beg for mercy from his father. Mufeng was still unaware that he had completely barged into a tiger's den. At this moment, he was still fantasizing about how he obtained the first Tao seed. Judging by the size of the Night Eater tribe, there must be a lot of bastards. With so many bastards, there should be at least 1 Tao seed. Mufeng did not know that if he could really destroy the entire Night Eater tribe, it was possible to obtain thousands of Tao seeds, let alone 1. After all, there were thousands of bastards in the Night Eater tribe. He had already arrived at the entrance of the Nocturnal Eclipse tribe and stood opposite the dozens of psychic ghosts. Seeing that the psychic ghosts did not immediately kneel down and beg their father for mercy, but instead were glaring at him fiercely, Mufeng instantly realized that something was wrong. This wasn't how the script was written. The 3 Ghost Whisperer tribes that he had passed by earlier had knelt down and greeted him as soon as they saw him. But now, why were the Ghost Whisperer of this tribe sizing him up as though he was their prey? The plot did not develop according to Mufeng's expectations. Seeing that Mufeng was at a loss, the leader of the bastard tribe laughed sinisterly. This human does have some problems, but it doesn't matter. As long as he has the heart, take him down. Even the bastard tribe thought that there was something wrong with Mufeng's head. Following the leader's command, a group of Earth Mirror-level bastards immediately rushed towards Mufeng. Seeing this, Mufeng's heart sank, and he cursed inwardly, why the King Ghost here doesn't play by the rules. Shouldn't he be kneeling down and begging father for mercy? This was far beyond Mufeng's expectations. However, given the current situation, Mufeng clearly had no other choice. He summoned his earth weapon and immediately engaged in a fierce battle with the thought ghosts. Faced with the siege of dozens of spirit-reading ghosts at the Earth Mirror level, Mufeng tragically discovered that not only did these spirit-reading ghosts not kneel down and beg for mercy, even their combat strength was far superior to the spirit-reading ghosts he had encountered before. Of course, the mind-reading ghosts that Mufeng had encountered earlier were the ones that Xiaochen had killed. Their strength was at the mysterious Yuan stage. Given Mufeng's cultivation and fighting strength, it was naturally a one-sided slaughter against the mind-reading ghosts at the mysterious Yuan stage. But now, it wasn't the Black Origin realm Niangui that was besieging Mufeng. Instead, it was the Earth Mirror realm Niangui. The difference between the two was like the difference between heaven and earth. Mufeng's expression changed drastically as he cursed, "Damn it. Did the psychic ghost here take some aphrodisiac? So ferocious?" They were completely different from the spirit-reading ghosts that he had encountered before. An ominous premonition arose in his heart. Although Mufeng could be a little foolish at times, he wasn't an idiot. Therefore, he quickly realized that there was a huge problem with his understanding of the spirit-reading ghosts. It wasn't that the spirit-reading ghosts weren't dangerous at all. It was just that he hadn't encountered them before. The spirit-reading ghosts here were obviously extremely dangerous. Mufeng wanted to retreat, but it was too late. He was already surrounded by the spirit-reading ghosts and was in a desperate situation. His strong desire to survive made him give it his all. As a peerless genius, Mufeng's combat strength was not to be underestimated. Although he was not as strong as the 10 Great Prides, he was still much stronger than the spirit-reading ghosts of the Earth Mirror. If it was a one-on-one battle, Mufeng could definitely kill them easily. Unfortunately, it was not a one-on-one battle. Mufeng resisted with all his might and successfully killed an Earth Mirror-reading ghost. Moreover, there was a Dao seed in the spirit-reading ghost's body. Seeing the Dao seed, Mufeng couldn't help but exclaim, "Dao seed, this is a Dao seed." Mufeng did not expect that he would actually obtain a Daoist thought seed when he was in such a desperate situation. However, before Mufeng could rejoice, team leader Nian, who had not made a move until now, saw that his subordinate had been killed by Mufeng. He immediately flew into a rage and shouted coldly, "A bunch of trash, get out of my way." Apparently, after witnessing Mufeng kill his subordinate, the spirit-reading ghost was ready to take action himself. Upon hearing the spirit-reading ghost's command, the spirit-reading ghosts retreated. Then, the spirit-reading ghost bent his legs and stomped on the ground. In an instant, he turned into a black shadow and charged towards Mufeng like a cannonball. The black shadow appeared in front of Mufeng in an instant. He didn't use the sharp claws that the spirit-reading ghost was proud of. Perhaps the spirit-reading ghost thought that Mufeng wasn't worthy enough for him to take seriously, so he only threw a punch. Even so, Mufeng was still unable to withstand Captain Niangui's punch. The powerful force sent Mufeng flying away. He didn't have time to react at all. From the moment the spirit-reading ghost attacked to the moment Mufeng was sent flying, only a split second had passed. How is this possible? Mufeng didn't expect the spirit-reading ghost to be so strong that he couldn't even withstand a single blow. Mufeng didn't know that the spirit-reading ghost before him had reached the celestial realm. In the 5 Elemental Palace, spirit-reading ghosts who had reached the celestial realm were also known as sky ghosts. There was a qualitative difference between them and ordinary spirit-reading ghosts. After sending Mufeng flying with a punch, the sky ghost sneered. "How dare you come to the Nocturnal Eclipse tribe with your ant-like strength? Seems like there's something wrong with your head." Upon hearing the sky ghost's words, Mufeng struggled to stand up. His eyes were filled with solemnity. He had indeed underestimated the danger of the spirit-reading ghosts. But then again, it wasn't entirely Mufeng's fault. Ever since he entered the 5 Elemental Palace, the spirit-reading ghosts that Mufeng encountered were all left behind by Xiaochen. It was the same for 3 spirit-reading tribes in a row. It was understandable for Mufeng to look down on the spirit-reading ghosts. The series of coincidences put Mufeng in a desperate situation. At this moment, Mufong finally understood that not all spirit-reading ghosts in the Five Elemental Palace would kneel and beg for mercy. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.